잠시 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 잠시 후 4시부터 2020 한-아프리카비즈니스포럼을 시작하겠습니다. 본 행사는 코로나 예방을 위해서 사회적 거리 두기를 반영한 좌석으로 운영되고 있습니다. 또한 행사장 내에서는 마스크 착용을 부탁드립니다. 불편하시더라도 협조해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. May I have your attention, please? The 2020 Africa-Korea Business Forum will be held shortly at 4 o'clock in Korea time. As part of our efforts to prevent COVID-19, we provide socially distanced seating. Please put on a mask throughout the event. Your cooperation is deeply appreciated. 오늘 행사는 동시 통역 서비스를 제공합니다. 통역기의 1번 채널은 한국어, 2번 채널은 영어입니다. Korea-English simultaneous interpretation is also provided for this forum. Please tune the receiver for Channel 2 for English and Channel 1 for Korean. 행사 관련 강연 자료는 발표 자료집 내에 QR코드로 다운을 받으실 수 있습니다. 본 행사는 아프리카와 서울을 잇는 웨비나로 진행이 되고 또 참가자를 위한 웨비나룸과 한-아프리카재단 유튜브에서 생중계로 진행됩니다. To download the presentation materials, please scan the QR code in your program book. Today's event is held in the form of webinar linking Africa and Seoul, and we have webinar room here in Seoul, and the event is now being live streamed on KAF YouTube channel for viewers around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. First of all, allow me to welcome you all to the 2020 The Africa-Korea Business Forum. I'm interpreter Koo Ji-seung, an MC for today's event. The 2020 Africa-Korea Business Forum is held annually, co-hosted by the Korea-Africa Foundation and African Union, and is held on the occasion of Africa Industrialisation Week. The 2020 AIW is held virtually from 16th and to 20th November under the condition of COVID-19. To the two-day-long event, the Korea-Africa Foundation and the Africa Union invite policymakers, officials from AU and RECs, experts and businesses, and investors to share know-how and expertise. And for those Korean businesses willing to enter the African market, we provide them opportunities to share relevant information and build network with African counterparts. This year's theme is Emerging Industries in the Post-COVID-19 to discuss current agendas regarding Korea-Africa cooperation and Africa's key economic issues in the post-COVID-19 era. Our forum will be an important venue to come up with practical ways to foster partnership between Korea and Africa, especially in on-tech industry, public health, and medical industry. And this will also give us a chance to deepen understanding about changing African business environment. The format of today's event is combination of both on and offline, a hybrid form, so that all stakeholders, including international organizations, academia, civic groups, businesses can take part. And we'll hold various discussions to expand exchanges and cooperation between Korea and African businesses. So up next, we'll invite His Excellency Yeon-ho Choi, President of Korea-Africa Foundation, to hear opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a big hand.
Thank you, Mr. of Ceremony, for your kind introduction of me, and good start for this wonderful business forum today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure that 2020 Africa-Korea Business Forum is held on the occasion of the Africa Industrialization Week 2020, virtually being hosted this week by the African Union. First of all, I would like to extend cordial welcome and heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency Ambassador Theo Lee, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, as the representative of the Korean government, and His Excellency Albert Muchanga, the Trade and Industry Commissioner of the African Union, and other officials. Secondly, I would like to thank and welcome speakers and panelists in advance for their presentations and discussions in this hybrid form of the on and offline, and also thank all the participants from Korea, Africa, and around the world. This forum will be held until tomorrow, available to viewers as the Master of Ceremony already guided you via Zoom and the YouTube channels of the Korea-Africa Foundation and the African Union. Ladies and gentlemen, before I go further, let me briefly talk about the Korea-Africa Foundation I represent. The CAF was established in June 2018 as the government agency specialized in African continent with a mandate to contribute to building a more comprehensive and future-oriented partnership between Korea and Africa. Ever since, the Korea-Africa Foundation has striven to enhance to the understanding of Africa, which is a young continent whose unlimited potential is gaining great importance in the global community, and to expand exchanges in the fields of economy and business. For the past 2 years and a half, the Korea-Africa Foundation has been organizing several business seminars in collaboration with major domestic economic organizations such as Federation of Korean Industry, FKI, Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, KCCI, and Korea International Traders Association, KITA, in order to explore the potential and business opportunities in African continent. This year, taking into account of the COVID-19 pandemic, we switched to webinars overviewing the fast-changing business environment in Africa with the theme of COVID-19 and the African economy and the untapped industry and the manufacturing industry in Africa in post-COVID-19 era. Ladies and gentlemen, since establishment, the Korea-Africa Foundation has also made very meaningful progress on its partnership with the African Union. Last year, the Korea SMEs and Startup Products Exhibition and the 2019 Africa-Korea Business Forum were held at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on the sideline of the 2019 African Industrialization Week, AIW, under the theme of Partnership for Accelerating Industrialization in Africa. Various stakeholders gathered there to discuss business partnership between Korea and Africa. And the exhibition of the product of Korean SMEs and ideas of Korean youth startups drew a great deal of interest. This year, we tried a new way of holding forums and exhibitions beyond the limitation of physical mobility during the pandemic, which I believe reaffirmed a solid partnership between Foundation and the African Union. In addition to this forum, the Korea-Africa Foundation and 30 Korean SMEs and startups are currently participating in the Intra-African Virtual Trade Fair hosted by the African Union, the African Exim Bank, Export-Import Bank, and the Rwanda government. By doing so, we support Korean companies to promote their business on the online platform and actively exchange with stakeholders in Africa and around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, today, the global community is facing unprecedented challenges from the COVID-19. The African continent is no exception, suffering a lot of economic and social damages. The current situation is even more regrettable since expectations were running high this year for the full-fledged implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. However, it is encouraging to witness that efforts are continued to create jobs and growth across the continent. Korea is moving beyond untapped to the so-called untapped, where people communicate online while minimizing face-to-face contact. In the African continent, non-face-to-face business using IT technology are going active, and related startups are rapidly gaining ground. Under these circumstances, this forum will hopefully help Korea and Africa to share their experience and information on the untapped business and the healthcare and medical industry, which are drawing a great attention as a new growth strategy and emerging industries in the post-COVID-19 era, and to seek for ways to collaborate for mutual growth. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, there is a Somali proverb saying, a broken bridge is repaired only when someone dives into the water. COVID-19 is a challenge, but I'm confident that this forum will become a meaningful step towards finding opportunities in the post-COVID-19 era. I hope it will serve as a venue to raise interest in the rapidly changing business environment in Africa and to further consolidate the business partnership between Korea and Africa in the post-COVID-19 era. In concluding, please accept my best wishes for a very fruitful two-day forum. I wish you all stay safe and healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Chair, for your warm remarks. The forum is already off to a good start thanks to your warm remarks. Thank you very much. Moving on, we'll invite His Excellency Tae Ho-ri, Vice Minister, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, and he has sent us a video remarks. Let's hear from him.
Your Excellency Albert Muchanga, African Union Commissioner for Trade and Industry, Your Excellency Ambassador Choi Yeon-ho, President of the Korea-Africa Foundation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to make congratulatory remarks at the 2020 Africa-Korea Business Forum on behalf of the government of the Republic of Korea. This forum was created to implement the outcome of the post-Korea-Africa Forum held in 2016 and is now only 2 years old. Yet, it has served to testify Korea's readiness to deepen the economic partnership between Korea and Africa. I recall that last year's forum, held in Addis Ababa on the occasion of the Africa Industrialisation Week, attracted a number of Korean startups and young entrepreneurs. This year, I'm happy to note that many Korean entrepreneurs attend the Intra-African Virtual Trade Fair organized by the AU and the government of Rwanda, even in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. The theme for today's forum, Emerging Industries in the post-COVID-19 era, is indeed apt and timely. COVID-19 has not only transformed our daily lives, but also changed the way in which business is done all around the world. We are now faced with a new normal. The WHO once predicted that Africa would be the most vulnerable continent with potentially up to 44 million confirmed cases in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Likewise, experts predicted that COVID-19 would hit the continent most severely, resulting in 19 million people losing their livelihoods, 290 million people additionally falling under the extreme poverty line, resulting in a deteriorating trade deficit, a reduction in remittances, and food crisis. Over the past several months, however, Africa has demonstrated a clear resilience in response to the pandemic. With the least confirmed cases of all the continents, it is still below 2 million cases. No doubt, Africa will continue to show great resilience, proving that it is able to translate its economic potential into reality even during this global crisis. Distinguished guests, over the recent years, Korea and Africa have been broadening the economic partnership in various areas. With drastic changes the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to our economies, it is time to renew our commitment. Africa, with its rapidly increasing young population and rising income levels, is emerging as the next big consumer market as well as a great manufacturing base. The African Continental Free Trade Area will bring countries in the continent close to each other, realizing significantly increased intra-African trade and thereby creating millions of jobs in Africa. We needed to take full advantage of opportunities presented to us, paving the way for a new strategic cooperation between Korea and Africa. First and foremost, Korea has worked closely with Africa in response to COVID-19. Drawing upon the lessons learned in its experiences of responding to COVID-19 based on its rapid diagnostic testing, thorough tracing, as well as swift treatment, Korea has assisted Africa's efforts to combat the COVID-19 with more than $160 million worth of assistance package. A series of web seminars have been offered by the Korean health authorities in an effort to share their practical know-how in the prevention and control of the disease. Korea-made test kits and medical face masks are being distributed in 44 African countries. With the support from COICA, Madagascar opened the nation's first national laboratory for infectious disease, and DR Congo opened the COVID-19 Diagnosis Center just this month. The pandemic has in fact brought new business opportunities for African and Korean countries alike. Korea's diagnostic test kits are now being exported to Morocco, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, and many other African countries. Pasteur institutes, local hospitals, and pharmaceutical companies from Senegal and Korea join hands to conduct a clinical trial for COVID-19 treatment. Secondly, the ICT is another area in which there is a great scope for the deepening of our partnership in the new normal era. Rather paradoxically, COVID-19 has, in some senses, enabled the world to engage in new types of virtual contact. A digital age is presenting new opportunities for both Africa and Korea. Korea is pursuing the digital New Deal, pushing digitalization in a wide range of our lives with a bolder and forward-looking investment. On the African side, a digital transformation is underway in sub-Saharan Africa with the fastest growing mobile economy in the world. Mobile technology and service economy accounts for around 9% of the total GDP of sub-Saharan African countries, and the number of mobile subscribers in sub-Saharan Africa is estimated to be 477 million, accounting for 45% of the entire population. Korean companies are playing an increasing part in constructing sound infrastructure for Africa's digital transformation. For instance, the largest Korean telecom company, KD Corporation, successfully completed the construction of Africa's first nationwide 4G LTE network in Rwanda. In Gabon, KT replaced the previous network with the latest high-speed system, allowing more than 60% of Gabonese people to enjoy uninterrupted internet access. Startups are coming to the fore, connecting Korea and Africa. For example, Tella, a Korea-based English mobile tutoring service, hires young Ugandans as English tutors via internet, and it has proved a big hit among Koreans who want to improve their English. In the coming years, I expect to see more startup success stories connecting entrepreneurs in Korea and Africa. Third, Korea is a committed partner for Africa's industrialization. COVID-19 has accelerated the fragmentation of global value chains, making Africa more attractive as manufacturing base. Korean investment in the private sector in Africa is on the rise. Samsung is operating manufacturing plants in various places in Africa, South Africa, and Egypt, to name a few. More Korean enterprises, such as LG, Hyundai, and Daewoo, have established a solid presence in Africa, deepening the economic ties between Africa and Korea. Together with the engagement by Korean enterprises, the Korean government has also played an active role in boosting industrialization in Africa by dedicating a significant amount of its development cooperation. The total amount of financing the Korea Economic Development Cooperation Fund, EDCF, has provided for various infrastructure projects in Africa reaches $4.5 billion since 1987. Distinguished guests, last year, the Korean Prime Minister as well as the Foreign Minister paid visits to Africa and demonstrated Korea's commitment to further strengthen partnership with Africa. Next year's 5th Korea-Africa Forum and Korea-Africa Economic Cooperation Ministerial Conference will also bring policymakers and entrepreneurs of Africa and Korea closer together. In closing, I would like to quote a Nigerian proverb that says, "A man cannot sit down alone to plan for prosperity." In times of difficulty, it is all the more important to join hands with friends. As we look to the future, Korea is ready to work together with our friends of Africa in a spirit of partnership. By so doing, we will be able to overcome the challenges and build a future of prosperity. I look forward to today's forum generating valuable insights that will guide us on the path towards a strengthened bondage of friendship for a brighter future. Thank you.
That was such a wonderful remarks from Vice Minister Lee. Even though we are physically apart, I believe that we are all in this together. So up next, His Excellency Albert Muchanga, Trade and Industry Commissioner of African Union, will deliver a keynote speech. He's also currently holding the position of Commissioner of AFCFTA. The lecture is also taking place on the occasion of local events in Africa as part of the 2020 Africa Industrialization Week. So the Commissioner is joining us on the line. Good morning, Commissioner. Can you hear us?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Director of Ceremony. Thank you very much. And I'm very happy to be here. And certainly I join you in saluting His Excellency, Ambassador Taeho Lee, the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, as well as His Excellency Ambassador Yin-ho Choi, the President of the Korea-Africa Foundation. Certainly, I also salute our colleagues from the private sector who are in this forum, as well as the invited guests. And as indicated, very happy to be with you here, and I really greet each and every one of you, and I'm honored to deliver this keynote address. But in making it, I'm also right from the beginning indicating that the statements given earlier, the president of the Korea Africa Foundation, as well as the vice minister, are very, very comprehensive and very insightful. They really are going to give you a lot of food for thought as we will go through these deliberations. And our aim of this forum is to explore strategies to enhance the evolving partnership between Korea and Africa, and the focus, of course, on the challenge that is facing us, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. No country is free from this pandemic, and of course, going forward, the issue of Africa's industrialization. This is key for our structural transformation. The 2020 commemoration of Africa's industrialization, like I indicated earlier, comes against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. The onset of the COVID-19 pandemic has led to tremendous losses and a greater slowdown in the economic growth and development of countries of the world. The World Bank forecasts a 5.2% contraction in global GDP. And in respect of Africa, the World Bank forecasts that all economies on average of the continent are going to have a negative 2% decline in the GDP. While the pandemic has not hit Africa in a manner that was forecasted, and the figures were given by the Vice Minister, the continent has nevertheless faced enormous pressures as a result of this pandemic. Our healthcare systems throughout the continent are under stress. And in respect of economic activities, the tourism sector is also going down, and there are losses of tourist visitations as well as incomes. And at the level of governments, the financial conditions are really mounting and getting worse, and the issues of external debt pressures emerging. I don't know if there is something with the line, because my special assistant is ringing me. Maybe if you can just give me a start break, I answer so that we can communicate better. Or hello? No, I'm speaking now. Sorry about that. It was my special assistant. He was not aware that I'm already making a statement. So I was indicating that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought a lot of challenges to Africa. And I was mentioning to the issue of tourism. And at the financial level, there was initial capital flight, and this was experienced in the depreciation of the currencies of most of the emerging markets. And there are no indications that there's going to be any return of that capital to our markets. And all these negative activities or developments have the potential of reversing the past gains that we have made in our economic development, and in the process, deepening poverty and job losses. And in fact, for Africa, we have not had an economic recession since 1995, and this is going to emerge this year. And the key issue is to ensure that we have a quick recovery from that economic recession. As earlier indicated, the theme chosen for the 2020 Korea-Africa Business Forum is on emerging industries in the post-COVID-19 era. And I see this as a very timely theme. Why? Because now countries are focusing on resilience. And in so doing, they're aiming to emerge stronger from the pandemic, and in the process, explore or be better positioned to explore strategies on how to rapidly and sustainably recover. In this regard, the role of industrialization will be crucial. So the question is, how do we develop our industries, and how do they have an effect on our recovery from this crisis? And in this state of affairs, or in this environment, the pursuit of smart industrialization cannot be postponed any longer, and it is the key to the quick recovery that we want to generate as we undertake our economic recovery and transformation process. Before the crisis, African countries were either implementing or designing national industrial policies. These proactive industrial policies were aimed at expanding the policy space for industrialization, learning from the experiences of the countries that have adopted similar policies earlier and are now in the league of the industrialized countries of the world. And in this respect, the Republic of Korea is one of those countries that have really come up with very, very impressive records of industrialization. And this is the reason why the African Union Commission values the partnership that is evolving between Africa and Korea. And we believe that even during this uncertain period, this partnership will be crucial to the two partners. And indeed, both the Vice President and the Vice Minister and the President of the Africa-Korea Foundation highlighted the importance of our evolving partnership. In the development of the manufactured, let me also highlight that several manufactured goods from Korea are global brands at construction sites, at all processing factories, the hotels, homes, and roads. Last year, I gave examples of mobile technologies where Samsung is one of the leaders. And then you've got also motor manufacturers like Hyundai Motors. In the electronic goods, we've got LG. And then you have other companies like Dio and POSCO Steel. All these are active across Africa. And this was also indicated by the Vice President. In all these sectors, which we see as a very, very impressive brand, we see opportunities for transfer of technologies, and we hope that we can leverage that technology to ensure that we create a very formidable base for the early recovery of Africa from the pandemic. As we have seen during this pandemic, the issue of innovation and emerging technologies have become very, very useful. And this is because they are able to provide solutions to health challenges that we face. And in the process, they will enable our people to adapt during lockdowns and other restrictions. There is a boom in e-commerce, as an example. And now the issue is, with this boom, how will the private sector be better positioned to leverage all these emerging technologies in the COVID-19 era? Now, sticking with the e-commerce example, which has fueled, and this was given earlier by earlier speakers, the untapped industry, the question is, how can the logistics sector, especially in Africa, benefit from this wave? What smart technologies can the startups be able to use to alleviate the challenges of logistics in the supply and delivery of goods and services in general? I'll leave you to consider these questions in the process of deliberating during this forum. Now, let me indicate that when we go back to the forum we had last year, there are a number of issues which can be recalled, and indeed the area speakers also brought up these issues. And one of them is that on the margins of the forum last year, we had the Korea Africa Youth Startup and Small and Medium Enterprises Fair, which was visited by quite a number of participants in Africa Industrialisation Week. And the exhibition included high-tech industries, manufacturers, those involved in agro-processing, in tourism, in medicare, the automotive sector, textiles, fertilizers, and the financial sector, among others. During this exhibition, indicated how all these are critical areas for Africa's structural transformation. And in this regard, we need to scale up such engagements. Let us therefore take time to evaluate the progress we have made in the past and then see how we can build on that success as we try to identify practical ways of deepening cooperation between Africa and Korea in the emerging areas of industrialization. I would like to conclude on 3 issues. First of all, we are facilitating the establishment of the African Business Council. And this is a wholly private sector initiative. And we see it as offering opportunities for enhanced interaction between the private sector of Korea and the private sector of Africa. And we encourage the private sector from Korea to really interact aggressively with the African Business Forum. And I've been in touch with the interim executive of the African Business Council, and I've also encouraged them that they should also take the initiative to come up with linkages with the private sector from Korea. Secondly, we start trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area on the 1st of July. And when that market opens up, we are going to have a very, very large market space of 1.27 billion people. And this population is likely to increase to 1.7 billion people by 2030. And therefore, it is an attractive market, and they would encourage Korean business to invest in this large market. And as earlier indicated, Africa is a young market. The median age is 19 years. The median age across Africa is 19 years. And in this young population, we also have a growing middle class, which offers a lot of opportunities for demand of consumption goods that are manufactured or processed. And I would like to also, as a third point, to warmly congratulate all the member states of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which was recently launched, which is last Sunday. And we note that the Republic of Korea is a member of that partnership. And in so doing, we are highlighted two things. Both the African Continental Free Trade Area and the Regional Economic Partnership are multilateral institutions. And in this respect, we are signaling to other partners that we are committed to the development of the multilateral trading system. And with a multilateral trading system growing and expanding, we see possibilities of more liberalized trade across the world. And it is this spirit that we warmly congratulate you. And we look forward in the future as the partnership grows to have linkages with the African Continental Free Trade Area. This is a very, very important forum, and it has mobilized a lot of participants from a range of sectors. And we foresee a situation where there will be very, very, very insightful discussions. And we look forward to really receiving the outcome of your discussions so that we can apply as at the political level, we move towards deepening the evolving partnership between Korea and Africa. This is where I end, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to address this august body. Thank you very much, Director of Ceremony.
That was such a wonderful remarks. Your, I think, valuable insight will provide Korean businesses to good opportunity to make entry into the African market. Thank you very much. So there is a brief announcement. For those of you who cannot find the documentary file, the presentation materials, it's inside a book. Please scan the QR code in your program book. So the back page of the book, there is this QR code. Then you can get the presentation material. Okay, so next, we'll begin the first session under the theme of Korea-Africa Partnership in on-tech and on-tech industry. So now I'll turn the podium over to Advisor Ha-in Choi of the Financial Supervisory Service on the blockchain for this session.
네, 안녕하십니까. 2020 한-아프리카 비즈니스 포럼의 제1세션 자장을 맡은 블록체인 에반젤리스트 최화인입니다. 오늘 이렇게 뜻깊은 자리에서 온라인과 오프라인을 통해 여러분들을 만나 뵙게 돼 진심으로 반갑습니다. 제1세션의 주제는 언택트와 온택트 산업 분야에서 한-아프리카 간 파트너십입니다. 제1세션의 진행 방식은 세 분의 전문가들의 발표를 연달아 들은 뒤 20분간 질의응답을 거치고 다시 세 분의 패널들을 추가로 모시고 전체 토론을 진행할 예정입니다. 먼저 첫 번째 발표를 맡아주신 테레즈 아쟁 박사님을 소개해드리겠습니다. 아쟁 박사님, 제 말씀 들리시나요?
So currently, Mr. Zhang has a connection issue, so she's still waiting on the line. So for those of you who are in this room, I'd like to briefly introduce her. She's a member and alternate to the Executive Committee of the Council for the Development of Social Science Research in Africa.
네, 지금 아쟁 박사님의 연결이 조금 시간이 걸리는 관계로 그렇다면 순서를 조금 바꿔서 엘레스테어 템페스트 박사님을 먼저 소개해드리도록 하겠습니다. 박사님, 제 목소리 들리십니까?
I can indeed. Good morning.
네, 감사합니다. 템페스트 박사님은 30년간 국제상공회의소에서 마케팅 통신위원회 위원으로 활동하신 이후에 남아프리카 공화국에서 Institute of Interactive and Direct Marketing 회장 및 Direct Marketing Association of Southern Africa의 사업 총괄 책임자를 역임하셨습니다. 현재는 Young Entrepreneurs Exchange 프로그램과 International Omni Retailing Market Association 등에서 자문위원으로 활동 중이시며 아프리카 이커머스 포럼의 대표를 맡고 계십니다. 템페스트 박사님께서 오늘 발표해 주실 내용은 아프리카 언택트 및 온택트 산업의 육성 정책 및 전략입니다. 큰 박수로 맞아주십시오. 템페스트 박사님이십니다.
Thank you very much indeed. Your Excellencies, Vice Minister Taeho Lee, Commissioner Albert Muchanga, and Ambassador Yon Ho Cho. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Good morning in my case, and good afternoon in yours. I think, let me just make sure my slides are working and which way they're working. I think the most important thing that we have clearly seen in this first year of the decade of the 2020s is that three zeitgeists have come together in Africa. I love this word, zeitgeist. It's a German word meaning world spirit or world mover. And those three zeitgeists are, firstly, the digital economy, secondly, the COVID pandemic, and thirdly, the African Free Trade Area, which, as His Excellency Muchanga said just now, is something which is about to start on the 1st of January next year. I think had we spoken just, let's say, 9 months ago on this platform, we would have seen something completely different. There would have been an utterly different picture to report on. The digital economy is definitely the silver lining in the dark cloud of COVID. And in Africa, that is particularly true. So I'll just take you through my slides. Some of them are there for more for information than to talk to. The Commissioner mentioned the population. We are a very young continent. 60% are under the age of 25 or under. This is an enormously growing continent. But one of our issues, which you will all be aware of, is that although Africa is the continent of the mobile phone, internet connectivity is still a low 40% compared to the global average of 60%. Now, that connectivity is estimated to grow by 11% in the next 10 years. My feeling is, from looking at what's been happening over these last 8 months of the COVID lockdown, that new innovations are coming in all the time. I've just put in one of them, which is the Alphabet Loom balloon system, which has been set up with Telecom Kenya and covers the central part of Kenya, including Nairobi. That will provide new connections to a very large percentage of the populated area of Kenya. There are many other examples. If I just look at some of the issues, the whole question of how blockchain as an instrument for trust and transparency will change Africa. And we already see that in process. For example, one of the regional economic communities, COMESA, is setting up a cross-border customs clearance system using blockchain as its base. There are also the possibilities of cryptocurrencies. Now, some governments are still rather dubious of cryptocurrencies, but they are increasing enormously. And I think it's very interesting to see that in the 12 months from June 2019 to June 2020, the amount of transfers into and from Africa of under $10,000 increased by more than 55%. So you can see this, cryptocurrencies are not just being used any longer in Africa as a way of investment or a way of looking at a Bitcoin, for example, as something to own and hope that it appreciates. It is also becoming a reality, a real reality. And they are particularly important for Africa because of currency fluctuations between different countries and therefore their ability to stabilize trade. Then there are many other examples. I put 4 down here. I think I'd like to just quickly look at one of those, which is addressing the unaddressed. We have a very large number of people in Africa who have no addresses. Because they have no addresses, they often don't have an identification. It's not necessarily that they're stateless, it's that they just have never been registered in their country of origin, where they were born. We also have, obviously, problems with banking as well. Banks will not open accounts for people who don't have addresses. So it's become a vicious circle. So if we can get over this, this system of non-addresses by addressing the unaddressed, we will be going a long way. E-commerce, which is my specific subject, has definitely leapfrogged 5 years during COVID. And it has done so principally because suddenly people have got more trust in it. And I don't just mean consumers are more trusting, but also that businesses have become more trusting of e-commerce. And that's a very big leap forward. I've given you some figures here, no need to go into those. You can have a look at my presentation afterwards. But I think it is extremely important, not just in the more, let's say, developed parts of Africa, like Mauritius, for example, like Egypt, like Morocco, or like South Africa, Rwanda, or Kenya, or Ghana, or Senegal. It's throughout the whole of Africa that we can see this movement growing of more e-commerce being used. We are still very new as an industry, as a sector, and therefore there is a serious lack of data on e-commerce. I can't really give you very good data. This comes from Statistica. Personally, as an economist, I actually rather doubt the figures here, but they are the only figures that we have. And as you can see, these were done pre-COVID last year, and they estimate up until 2023. I think these are now completely out of date, Nielsen Research has shown that in those three countries, Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya, consumers have increased their online shopping by over 30%. So it's an enormous increase, and just because of COVID, just because of the close down of a lockdown in COVID. So we really do see a great move forward, a leap forward. And Africa, in a way, is well known for its leap forwards. It has leapt forward in banking and mobile money. It has leapt forward in the use of the mobile rather than landline. This is another, let's use that German word again, zeitgeist, world mover, which has shifted the parameters in Africa. I got some examples together of ONTAC or UNTAC solutions, what we call African solutions for African challenges. And again, I just have a look at them because I'm not going to go through them in detail. I think some of them are really very interesting, though. In particular, the new company in Ghana, which rents drones to help small-scale farmers check the health of their crops and use less pesticide. Using less pesticide not only is environmentally helpful, but also allows those Ghanaian farmers to sell to Europe, where pesticides are controlled strictly. So that's a very nice example of the sorts of things that are happening. My favorites, because they're members of mine and I love them dearly, is Brown Sense. Brown Sense is a South African Facebook community of around about 2,000 people. You have to register to be part of it. But they reckon that around about 30% of those 200,000 are selling their services or goods on the platform. Now, I think this shows that e-commerce is not just a business for the big companies, for the Jumeirahs or Amazon or Alibaba, or in South Africa we have one called Takealot. It is not just for them. It is also a business model that is being seized upon by micro-sized companies, sole traders, and also by SMEs who need to sell at a distance and have recognized the importance of using e-commerce to do so. I think this is a really, really nice example. And it shows how large the e-commerce fraternity is in every country. Many of these people don't sell more than, maybe a couple of $1,000 worth of business in a year. But it is something that is giving them extra payment, and it's helping inclusivity of the whole society, including women, young people, rural communities, etc. Now, the main challenges, I was asked to address these main challenges to e-commerce, and obviously you will be very well aware of them. But just to remind you of what we are facing. And of course, I should very quickly say that these do vary, these issues vary from country to country. We have 55 states in Africa. They are very different in the way in which they are created, how their economies work, how their society works, how their culture works. So it's not, you can't say this is number one, number two, number three problem. They're problems which are hit different countries in different ways, at different times. The first of those is, of course, the lack of transport infrastructure. There are some exceptions to that, but it is a very serious one. How we can, as the African continent, start to connect ourselves with roads, rail, and also air cargo as well. This is a very big problem. One of the major e-commerce companies in Nigeria, Conga, has said that they are going to introduce drone deliveries. I don't think they have yet done so, but it's a very interesting concept, and they're putting quite a lot of money behind that. Jumea, which is known as the Amazon of Africa, has suddenly realized that its problem in actually making money and making its business work properly was delivery. And it has gone into delivery in a big way over the last few months. The second thing I mentioned already is connectivity. The fact that we are still lacking connectivity, and that is also because of the cost of data in some countries. It's due to unstable connections in some countries, and to the cost and stability of electric power as well. We mustn't forget that. We have problems with electric power, except in some countries which are lucky enough to have hydroelectric dams, etc. Online payment systems in some countries are lacking, or they don't operate, or they can't operate properly due to rules and regulations. But then again, in other countries, for example, Kenya is one of the great examples of mobile money, so-called M-Pesa system. So cutting edge innovation is really there, and it's there to stay. Lack of investment. The Commissioner mentioned that it would be nice to see more South Korean investment in Africa. I very much hope that that will be the case and that you will invest in the digital economy. Please do. You are the experts. You are the leaders in the digital economy. So we look towards you to help us. But I think investment is getting better, even despite the COVID. And I think it will be even better if we have more data to provide to investors to show them exactly what's going on. Cross-border tariffs and non-tariff barriers and all these sorts of things are going to be addressed over a period of time by the African Free Trade Area and by the regional economic communities. And of course, that will take time, but it will happen. Financial central bank regulations is one of my bête noire, as they say. It's just taken me over a month to set up a bank account here in South Africa for a non-profit organization. So it does cause problems, and it causes some difficulties, and we must try and get around that. I consider that the regulations of central banks, financial institutions, very often are non-tariff barriers. Cybersecurity, big issue. We lack skills, and because we're still very new, we fall into trap of cyber criminals, which is very worrying. Education on the digital economy and the skills of the digital economy. As in everywhere, we need more on that. The lack of necessary consumer protection, competition policy, intellectual property, and data protection legislation in many countries is very noted. And it does reduce the trust that both business and consumers have in the digital economy and obviously in e-commerce. And then there's the old issue of bureaucracy, red tape, and lack of clarity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The World Bank does an annual report on the ease of doing business in different countries, and Mauritius came number 20 out of all the countries, Rwanda 29, Kenya 61, South Africa was 82, and Botswana was 86. So it's getting better, but of course it could be much better. And I think this will be driven very much by the African Free Trade Area. It will get things going. The African Digital Transformation Strategy, which was adopted by the African Union earlier this year, for a 10-year program. As you can see, I'm not going to read it out, but it has some really important issues within it. Reducing barriers to cross-border trade, developing enabling regulatory framework for e-commerce, which will start next year, on the 1st of January, allowing regional and continental integration of data markets, developing and improving the regulatory environment for fintechs and payment systems, and addressing issues to do with delivery. All these are incredibly important, and they are outlined in the transformation strategy. So to conclude, the African Free Trade Area, scalability, reindustrialization, employment, and I've added, to me, one of the most important, African pride. Pride by Africans of what they produce in Africa. We will see the African Free Trade Area being negotiated over a long period of time. It's not going to happen tomorrow or even next year, but it will slowly happen. And it is very necessary that we have the support of leading countries like South Korea in, for example, the World Trade Organization, where I know you're a very active member of the e-commerce expert group. These are places that we need support, diplomatic support, political support. In terms of the actual cross-border trade, one of our biggest problems, I believe, is that there is very little trust, not between consumers and e-commerce or between business and e-commerce, but between states in Africa. It has taken a long time for states to start to learn to work together. And in some cases, they still don't. There are plenty of examples where suddenly one state will unilaterally take trade action against another. So we need to work towards creating a greater trust between the states of Africa and creating economies of scale for business, the scalability, which is not necessarily as obvious to business as it should be. So one of the things that we are trying to do in the e-commerce Forum Africa is to get messages out on how scalability will work, how the economies of scale will work. If you are a business in, let's say, Togo, and your next door neighbor is Nigeria, near next door neighbor is Nigeria, you may feel somewhat overwhelmed, but you have expertise in your country, which Nigerians don't necessarily have. And it's learning those expertise and building on them to create a real vibrant business. Encouraging the digital economy and e-commerce as drivers, the untapped and on-tapped world, to be the drivers of industry and of business throughout Africa is going to be very important. Building manufacturing through demand. We really do need to get more manufacturing going in order to employ the youth who are coming into the employment markets now. It's not a negotiable issue. We must do that. And that means also the renaissance of business to provide employment for youth, women, rural communities, and other disadvantaged people. So finally, this point that I made before, that we have to create a pride in made in Africa. We have some excellent examples in the fashion industry, for example, where African fashion is not just being sold in Africa, or throughout Africa, but also on the global market, and not just to the diaspora as well. We need to build that sort of thing. The pride of made in Africa is incredibly important. And I think examples of cooperation, there is a group of 32 nations which have got together under Smart Africa to try to have initiatives and grow initiatives. They are looking at smart cities, they're looking at smart villages, they're looking at payment systems, etc. These are very, very important. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for listening. I was asked to write a paper earlier this year, which actually I finished rewriting it just as COVID struck. So it's slightly outdated, but it is the digital economy and e-commerce in Africa drivers for the African Free Trade Area. It has some good parts to it, some not such good parts, but anyhow, I wish you well in reading it. And I will be writing another paper, just finished it for SIA, with a co-author who's a specialist in blockchain. And we're going to produce that, I think it's on the first week of December sometime. Please feel free to contact me, and to the organizers again, thank you very much indeed for your professionalism and for this excellent initiative. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen.
네, 템페스트 박사님 발표 감사합니다. 다음으로 전승화 박사님을 소개해드리겠습니다. 박사님, 혹시 제 목소리 들리시나요? 전승화 박사님?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
네, 감사합니다. 전승화 박사님께서는 15년간 KT에서 미래전략 전문가이자 시장 분석가로 활동하셨으며 포노 사피엔스 경제학의 저자이시기도 합니다. 현재는 캐나다에서 데이터 분석가로 활동하시면서 한국에서도 IT 칼럼니스트와 디지털 경제학의 전문가로 활약하고 계십니다. 오늘 전 박사님께서 발표해 주실 내용은 한국의 언택트 및 온택트 산업의 발전 경험과 교훈입니다. 여러분 큰 박수로 전승화 박사님을 맞아 주십시오.
Hello? I will share the screen one more time. Yeah, good afternoon and good morning, depend on where you are. My name is Seung-hwa Jun. It's past 3 a.m. in Toronto, but I'm very much excited to meet you on tech and to have a chance to talk about the on-tech industry in Korea. First of all, I will briefly talk about the background of the recent surge of the on-tech and on-tech industry. Then I will explain what it is and go over the areas of the industry. Lastly, I will share with you some lessons Korea has learned throughout this difficult time. As Thomas Friedman pointed out, these sudden changes in our life all started with the coronavirus. Yes, Corona became our new historical divide. Let's first talk about some characteristics of Korea. As you know, Korea is one of the most densely populated countries in the world, and more than 80% of its population is urban. This makes most Koreans inevitably live in a sort of contact society. Also, Korea is a collectivistic society, especially when compared with the US, representative of individualistic society. It means that Koreans belong to their member groups and show their close long-term commitment. Loyalty in Korean culture is paramount and overrides most other societal rules and regulations. Especially, the corporate culture of Korea is considered even more collectivistic than that of Japan, and this hindered a work-from-home practice unfeasible. Before Corona, a proportion of workers who experienced remote working remained extremely low, as 0.6%. Yes, that's less than 1%. And then the COVID-19 outbreak. In Korea, the epidemic has peaked in March, quite earlier than most other countries. So, Korean government rapidly implemented national social distancing measures and focused on the test. Wait a second, I have to. Yeah, is it better? Sorry. Can I continue now? Okay. As you can see in the figure, describing the gaps of the change rates among technology, individuals, businesses, and public policy, government is usually very slow to catch up with technological changes. However, the pandemic pushed the government to act fast. And all the regulatory measures, such as social distancing, lockdowns, school closure, and travel restrictions, made us heavily rely on digital technologies. Thus, the pandemic resulted in accelerated digital adoption. As described in the slide, human adaptability to technological changes has been lagged behind for the past few years, as you can see here, since digital technology grows exponentially. However, COVID-19 has made us to speed up, and the red line, you see here, the red line in this figure is what I newly added. We just catch up with the speed. So as you can see, the digital technologies we are forced to adopt during the pandemic have led to the on-tech and on-tech industry. Okay, then how fast was our adoption of those technologies? Well, at the end of April this year, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, mentioned that 2 years of digital transformation occurred in just 2 months. Well, whether you like it or not, or whether you're ready or not, the virus made us suddenly rely on digital services and many other contactless technologies. This is like the whole society just skipped over several diffusion processes of those technologies. Those services and technologies were not just for innovators or early adopters anymore. They became the survival kits for majority of people. Well, and moreover, some of them were even more formidable, just like a Big Bang. Let's take online learning and video conferencing. Even though the technologies were readily available, thanks to the widespread internet and smartphones in Korea, they were ignored in the market for many years. However, the nationwide social distancing and school closure made it inevitable to use. Suddenly, it became for everybody. Okay, now that we understand the background of the industry, let's look at the definition of the words on-tech and on-tech. The two high trending buzzwords are coined in Korea. Yes, they are Konglish. On-tech was first appeared in the book named Trend Korea 2018 by Professor Nando Kim as a combination of the prefix on and the word con-tech. Thus, on-tech industry can be defined as non-face-to-face, non-contact, and unmanned services that can minimize human contact and replace direct interpersonal interactions. On-tech is introduced in his recent book, and this time, online is added to on-tech. On-tech is basically a part of on-tech. It just emphasizes that the contact takes place online and people can stay connected. Well, now let's look at the areas of the industry one by one. Here I listed some of Korean companies in each category. One of the most eminent on-tech services would be video conferencing. As I said earlier, it was only 0.6% in Korea before Corona, but within a few months after Corona, more than 62% of employees have experienced it. For telemedicine, Korea can be considered as a unique case because it has not been formally accepted for the last 32 years, owing to stakeholders' resistance and legal restrictions. That is why Naver Line, Korean company, launched a telemedicine service in Japan instead of Korea. However, the virus opened up the door, and now it is one of the most promising areas of future growth. For online shopping, as in every other countries in the world, the demand for e-commerce has skyrocketed amid the pandemic, and the fastest growing sectors include food delivery services and household goods. It really is in war in Korea, the market, mainly between Naver and Coupang. And 11th Street recently announced its new partnership with Amazon to compete with them. Regarding online education, the Ministry of Education and EBS are doing their best to upgrade educational platforms for every student, such as eHakse터, Widurang, and online class. In terms of online gaming, Korea's gaming moguls gained a boost as global lockdowns and social distancing give people more time at home to play games. The combined revenues of the three main companies in Korea, Nexon, Netmobile, and NCSoft, are expected to reach 7 trillion won this year. Video streaming also see increasing demands, especially among young generations. On-tech industry is not just for B2C customers only. On-tech technologies are also affecting and serving other industries. For example, Korean manufacturers are rapidly transforming themselves through digital technologies such as AI smart factories. Samsung SDS, SK CNC, LG CNS, and POSCO ICT are the representative smart factory solution companies in Korea, and telecommunications companies like KT also expanding their services in this area. In terms of SNS, Kakao and Naver are the two big companies in Korea, and they are expanding their service areas even wider. Well, TechFin TechFin is fintech. Well, it just emphasizes tech more than finance. They include online payment and online banking, etc. Even though virtual banking has been considered as banks of the future in recent years, there has been huge resistance from traditional players. However, in recent months, online banks are expanding their foothold faster than expected, and they are gearing up for IPOs and partnerships with financial giants. Their emergence and growth is in line with the government's new policies to foster internet-only banks and other eased regulations. In terms of real estate, property technology, PropTech, is also in the rise to avoid a face-to-face contact. Well, now let's talk about unmanned services. Korea has the highest density of robot workers, and now it hires robot waiters and robot baristas, in addition to numerous self-driving kiosks. So if you roam around the city, you may encounter a robot asking you what to drink. Also, Korean retailers such as Shinsegae Ima트 and GS Retail are planning to expand their unmanned stores. Also, drones and autonomous cars are gearing up to serve customers within a few years. Delivery drones and autonomous robots are increasingly researched by government organizations and private companies for their versatility, convenience, and cost-cutting abilities. For example, drones were trialed earlier this year to deliver medication for people living on various local islands. Also, GS Group has tested delivery drones to carry food in remote regions, aiming to start the service next year. Regarding self-driving car, Hyundai is eager to develop the technology and to acquire or invest in foreign talents. So recently, it unveiled its new brand Motional, which is a joint ventures with Aptiv, an auto part company in Ireland. Well, as explained earlier, on-tech is just a part of the on-tech industry. It is just to emphasize more human touch and connection. As the pandemic and social distancing have been extended, people find more and more events online so that they can still be connected together. Now you can find weddings, religious gatherings, home fitness, and many more just online. Also, people come up with more creative ways to meet with others, and they are creating something more immersive than just video streaming. For example, many cultural activities and symposiums are now on tech. One of the most successful stories would be BTS. As you know, their recent online concert was a massive hit, and they set another world record with the most viewers for a music concert live stream. Their fans, known as the BTS Army, appeared on a small screens during the virtual events, waving light sticks known as Army Bomb. The picture is in the middle. Okay, great. Now that we have covered Korea's experience in each area of the industry, let me finish this presentation with a few things that Koreans are learning to live with coronavirus. First of all, I would like to emphasize the importance of the internet itself, as it is a profound infrastructure for all on-tech industry. Korea is with 90% of smartphone penetration and a global #1 mobile internet speed. And needless to say, this made the sudden on-tech surge possible. Also, the Korean government recently announced its Digital New Deal in June 2020, and it aims to leverage technologies such as 5G and AI to support its economic recovery. Especially, 5G network is very important for more immersive on-tech technology. and services. As you can see in the slide, 5G is characterized with ultra high speed and ultra low latency and ultra high connectivity. It technically enables new services such as real-time telematics, remote control, and automated control, thus providing new business opportunities as well as expanding existing ones. Secondly, I would like to point out more and more services will go untapped. In this with coronavirus economy, consumers are valuing services, product, people, and institutions that not only reduce their anxiety and risks, but also provide some sense of belonging. If you think about Abraham Maslow's human motivation pyramid, it is so natural that we all seek for more social needs once we are satisfied with security needs. You may refer to the 30 elements of values the Bain & Company described to explore various customer values. Also, I would like to highlight that keeping the economy going is very important. According to the recent OECD report, Korea was able to avoid the extensive lockdowns, and this could limit the damage to the domestic economy. And output is shrinking less than any other OECD country. However, income inequality is relatively high in Korea, so it is an important challenge to keep the economy going while helping small businesses and self-employed that are hardest hit during the pandemic. Lastly, I would like to mention that bridging the gap between digital skills and employability for vulnerable populations is an urgent problem. Even though Korea's ICT infrastructure is the top level, we still have vulnerable classes, such as the elderly, farmers, disabled, and the low income. So it is one of the most important policy goals for more inclusive society. Well, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
네, 전승아 박사님 좋은 발표 감사합니다. 지금 저희가 그 아프리카의 디지털 현황, 특히 온택트와 언택트에 대해서 계속 앞에 템페스트 박사님께서 발표를 해주셨는데 지금 저희가 직접 체험할 수 있는 기회가 생겼습니다. 바로 테레즈 아쟁 박사님께서 디지털의 연결이 지금 문제가 있습니다. 지금 아프리카의 디지털 현황, 특히 인터넷 현황이 얼마나 어려운지를 체험할 수 있는 좋은 기회가 된 것 같습니다. 아쟁 박사님은 다음 기회에 함께 모시기로 하고 오늘은 일단 두 분 박사님과 함께 먼저 질의응답을 진행하겠습니다. 제가 먼저 템페스트 박사님의 그 발표를 들으면서 느꼈던 질문이 있는데 먼저 제가 조금 질문을 드리겠습니다. 템페스트 박사님께서 블록체인에 대한 말씀을 하셨는데 블록체인은 기본적으로 신원 인증에 굉장히 뛰어난 기술입니다. 그렇다면 지금 아프리카의 주민들 중에 한 40% 정도만이 주민등록 시스템에 등록이 되고 있는데 블록체인 기술을 이용해서 이들에게 디지털 신분증을 발급해 준다면 굉장히 훌륭한 사회의 어떤 기본적으로 혁신 서비스를 제공해 주는 터전이 될 것이라고 생각이 듭니다. 지금 한국에서는 기존의 주민등록 시스템을 디지털로 전환하고 있는 사업을 진행하고 있습니다. 특히 경남과 같은 데서는 디지털 신분증, 즉 디스트리뷰티드 아이디라고 해서 분산형 신원인증 디지털 카드를 만들고 있습니다. 이와 같은 시스템들이 혹시 솔루션으로 아프리카에 도입된다면 아프리카의 공공행정 서비스라든가 혹은 주민등록 시스템, 금융 서비스의 접근성을 높여주는 데 활용될 수 있을 것이라고 보는데 이에 대해서 템페스트 박사님의 의견을 좀 듣고 싶습니다.
Thank you very much indeed. I think it's a very interesting solution, and certainly the sort of solution that we would hope would come from yourselves in South Korea. There are one or two countries which are already launching electronic IDs. For example, Kenya has done so recently, but this needs to be done much more. And as I said before, I think it is very much a case also of combining that with addresses. So if people have permanent addresses, it's much easier for them to then have identity. So the two things have to work together. Using, for example, an overlay of Google Maps to create addresses. And then from that, you then move on to electronic ID systems. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 그리고 한 가지만 더 질문을 드리겠는데, 아까 박사님께서 기업들의 이제 해외 기업들의 아프리카 투자가 어려운 이유 중에 하나가 규제 모호성 혹은 정치적 불안정성을 말씀하셨는데, 이와 같은 특징을 극복할 수 있는 방법이 민간 영역에서 오히려 블록체인 기반으로 신뢰성을 구축할 수 있는 사회 인프라를 구축하면 훨씬 도움이 되지 않을까 싶은데, 이에 대해서 박사님의 의견을 좀 듣고 싶습니다.
Thank you. I feel I didn't actually say anything about the instability of North African countries, or indeed of any other country within Africa. There are instabilities, and we have to recognize those. But I wasn't mentioning those. I was talking more, I think, about the stability or instability of the electric system, electric power system, which does cause problems. And it causes obviously problems with connectivity, etc. But yes, blockchain can also be used to try to assist in disagreements, etc., etc., etc. One of the examples that I did give was of an organization, a company in Ghana called Ben, which is looking at the ownership of land. Most land in Africa doesn't have legal tenure attached to it. So therefore, it's sometimes very difficult to know exactly who owns it. Ben has gone into that, and using blockchain to go back in history, it's found out who owns what house, who owns what farm, etc., etc. And that sort of thing is very important, because it then gives property rights to people who can then use those property rights to get loans, or etc., etc. So it is a very important way of going about it. Blockchain does have its disadvantages, of course, and I'm sure you are very well aware of that. It lives on the principle which is rubbish in, rubbish out. If data which is not good is put into it, it will not come out with good solutions. So we have to be aware of that, I think, in any country, but particularly here where we're just starting.
네, 답변 감사합니다. 다음으로 전승호 박사님께 질문 드리고 싶습니다. 박사님께서 발표해 주신 내용을 보면 한국의 언택트 및 온택트 산업의 기반이 굉장히 발전된 ICT를 기반으로 진행되고 있습니다. 그런데 한국적 상황과 아프리카의 상황에는 굉장히 큰 격차가 있습니다. 그래서 아프리카에서 한국의 어떤 솔루션을 바로 도입하기에는 굉장히 큰 제약이 있지 않은가 싶은데, 한국이 지금 성공적으로 이끌어내고 있는 이 온택트 사회의 어떤 특장점들을 아프리카에 좀 적합하게 채용한다면 어떤 방식이 가능할까요?
Okay. Well, the motivation could be well, usually Korea, we have passed the 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. We did it step by step. So we have both wired and wireless networks, very in a high level. But in Africa, it's a massive land. So building a wired network and the fiber, wired network in the level of Korea might be very difficult. So I am actually witnessing that some African countries, they just move, the 3G and just directly go to 4G. I mean, the mobile internet. So I think that's a very smart strategy. And also, the KT is actually helping some African countries to do so. And so we already built a collaboration and we're actually implementing that strategy. In terms of 5G, I think in Africa, immersive services might be a little bit early, to talk about. So building a concrete mobile network, that's the urgent thing. And then what we already have in Korea, like based on the mobile internet, the high penetration, 95 penetration. So that might be the things that Africa can watch. So e-commerce, as the professor mentioned, and they can even, I think there are some possibilities that African countries can go farther. I mean, can have some advanced service than Korea, because they just stepped over the wireline network-based services. So I'm expecting, some smart services that only African countries can do will emerge soon. I hope this can be the answer.
네, 답변 감사합니다. 지금 전승아 박사님의 말씀을 들으니까 생각이 났는데, 보통 다른 나라에서는 디지털 전문가가 프로그램 개발자라든가 이런 시스템 개발자에 많이 치중되어 있는 반면, 아프리카에서는 영상 미디어 관련 혹은 통번역 관련되어 있어서 이런 미디어 관련 예술에 굉장히 많은 디지털 전문가들이 양성되고 있다고 합니다. 이것은 바로 박사님께서 말씀하신 것처럼 아프리카 대륙이 가지고 있는 특장점이 될 수 있지 않을까 싶은데, 이쪽 분야의 어떤 투자라든가 우리가 참고할 만한 어떤 사례 혹은 어떤 전략 같은 것들을 좀 말씀해 주실 수 있을까요?
Honestly, my knowledge about the African countries are limited, and there are so many, countries in Africa, and I think the characteristics of each country vary so much, I think. But what can be said? As I presented you the Maslow's the basic needs pyramid, the humans, what we invent is based on the dire needs, based on our dire needs. So I see some payments are related to the electricity. So I've seen some articles in some African country that's very innovative. So when they combine their very basic needs of electricity, energy, or water, and that's kind of incentivizing, what they do. Like, sorry, I'm babbling a little bit, but what I see in China, they have a very smart SNS services that just connects everything together. So, for example, Alipay, and the Alibaba implemented a gamification sort of a tactic that when you walk, or when you bike, not driving the car, you're actually saving, the energy and actually saving the earth. And then when they get the points, a lot of points, and then they can actually, the Alibaba actually helps to plant the actual tree, in Mongolia. So, that's not just you are saving your money, you are also saving the earth, not in a virtual ways, but also in a physical way. So I think Africa can benchmark, I think, rather Korea, but in that kind of things, China can be the benchmarking example, because it also has a massive land and has a very diverse, population, and different, depend on the area, the infrastructure, and the people, the characteristics all different. And compared to Korea, very small, densely populated, pretty much equalized. So that might be the tip that I can give you, benchmarking China, especially Alibaba and Tencent.
네, 감사합니다. 자, 이제 질문을 저 혼자 독식할 수 없으니까 사전 접수된 질문들을 취합해서 이 두 분의 박사님들께 다시 질문 드리겠습니다. 자, 지금 들어와 있는 질문은 코로나19에 따른 아프리카 국내의 유통환경 변화와 미래 대응 전략에 대해서 질문이 들어왔는데, 이것을 조금 더 확장해서 아프리카 대륙 자유무역지대가 출범했음에도 불구하고 오히려 코로나의 발생으로 영내에서의 어떤 국경 봉쇄 혹은 이동 제한 그리고 야간 이동 금지 등으로 인해서 오히려 영내 무역량이 급감하고 있습니다. 이 아프리카 자유무역 지대 출범과 코로나라는 서로 상충적인 두 가지 요인들이 향후에 어떻게 전개될 것인지 두 박사님께 차례로 말씀을 좀 들었으면 합니다. 먼저 템페스트 박사님께서 말씀해 주시겠습니까?
Thank you very much. The African Free Trade Area will create a single market. I think we need to be careful to say that this will take time. I was involved in my previous life in Europe at the time when the single market was launched in Europe in the 1990s, 1980s. We are faced with 55 countries rather than in Europe at that time was around about 20. It's a very, very big job to be done. It clearly means that you have to open your frontiers to trade, to capital, and to population, movement of population. Excuse me. And I think that all those things are going to take quite a considerable amount of time to happen. But it will. Over time, it will happen. So I'm very optimistic that this will happen. It's just, it's not magic wand and it won't happen tomorrow. So these discussions that we're having today will go on for many years to come. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 다음 전승아 박사님 답변 부탁드립니다.
Yes.
네, 마찬가지로 동일한 질문입니다. 아프리카 자유무역지대와 코로나라는 서로 상충적인 요인들이 아프리카에 어떤 영향을 미칠 것인가, 향후 전망에 대해서 말씀을 좀 부탁드립니다.
Well, as Dr. Tempest already mentioned, I think, people find ways, it seems conflicting, but actually it's not. So as I told you in my presentation, UNTACT seems pretty much contradictory to COVID-19 because it actually, it's based on the needs of the people who wants to be connected, in a more realistic way. That's why the service became more immersive. So even though it would take time, but I think people will learn, how to live with COVID-19. So maybe the procedure and the outcome might be a little different from the traditional way that we did. But as the doctor mentioned, I think we will find a way, even though it might take a little longer. But I think, yeah, soon we'll do it.
네, 감사합니다. 지금 전승아 박사님께서 말씀하신 내용은 코로나19가 결국은 사람들의 디지털에 대한 수요를 더 확장시키고 급속히 앞당겨서 결국 아프리카 자유무역 지대의 어떤 중요한 동인으로서 작동할 것이라고 말씀해 주신 것 같습니다. 자, 그러면 또 다음 질문을 한번 보겠습니다. 질문은 좀 넘기고 한번 이 질문을 볼까요? 자, 비대면 산업 분야에서 한국 기업이 아프리카 시장에 진출하기 좋은 업종이 도대체 무엇인가라는 질문인데, 사실 한국 쪽 기업들은 이 질문에 굉장히 어떻게 답변하실까 기가 솔깃하실 것 같습니다. 자, 이 질문은 템페스트 박사님께 드리고 싶은데요. 일단 아프리카 시장이라는 것이 사실 하나의 단일 시장으로 묶이는 국가 간 격차가 너무 크다. 아까 박사님께서 말씀해 주신 것처럼 물적 인프라의 어떤 구성이라든가 아니면 규제적 측면 혹은 산업 환경 자체가 너무 다르다라고 말씀하셨는데, 그렇다면 아프리카 시장에 진출하는 한국 기업들도 여기에 맞는 어떤 전략이 필요하지 않을까 싶은데, 혹시 한국 기업들이 참조할 만한 어떤 조언이 있으실까요? 이게 온라인의 묘미죠. 또 연결에 잠시 문제가 생겼습니다. 혹시 전승화 박사님은 지금 연결되어 있으실까요? 두 분 다 지금 연결에 약간 어려움이 있는데 혹시 이 짬을 이용해서 미리 질문을 좀 하시고 싶은 분들은 지금 혹시 질문을 좀 미리 해주시겠습니까? 그렇다면 나중에 제가 시간을 봐서 적절하게 이 두 발표자님 혹은 앞으로 같이 하시게 될 세 분의 패널 분들께 질문을 좀 전달드리겠습니다. 아직 생각 중이신가요? 네. 저기 지금 손 드신 분이 계신데 잠시 네, 맞습니다. 네. 적어서 주시겠어요? 아니면 지금 말씀해 주시겠습니까? 네.
저는 무채물 기술무역 전문 기업이에요.
네.
그래서 아프리카 지금 앞에 발표해 주신 분들 박사님들 하신 말씀이 솔직히 지금 이렇게 좀 현실적으로 이렇게 와닿지가 않거든요.
네.
전 실제로 무역을 하고
네.
지금 이 포스트 코로나 오기 전부터 저는 이 비대면이든 온택이든 다 이런 기술 무역을 하던 사람이라서 그래서 잘 안 들리네요. 네. 그래서 저희는 인공지능 스마트팜이랑 로봇을 저희가 만들어요.
네.
그래서 이제 기존에는 농입업으로 시작을 했는데
네.
지금은 타산업으로 융합을 해서
네.
모든 분야로 다 적응을 하는데
네.
아프리카 같은 경우는 아까 보니까 토지도
네.
소유주도 명확하지 않고
네.
또 그런 정책상에 관련된 한국 기업이 진출을 하는데 보면은 정부나 그런 기관에서 이렇게 저희 나라처럼 이렇게 지원을 해준다든지 그런 게 좀 어려워 보이는 것 같아요. 그래서 조금 현실적인 좀
네.
그런 답변을 주셨으면 좋겠어요. 지금 앞에 말씀하시는 답변들을 다 보면은 사람들이 찾을 수 있다. 기업들이
네.
움직일 것이다. 약간 will, 지금 그런 식 if, 약간 가정법식으로 말씀을 하셔서 실제 무역하는 사람 입장에서는 와닿지가 않아요.
네, 알겠습니다. 질문해 주셔서 감사합니다. 자, 박사님, 혹시 지금 플로어에서 들어온 질문 들으셨나요? 템페스트 박사님, 그럼 앞서 제가 드렸던 질문처럼 아프리카 시장에 진출하고 싶은 한국 기업들이 구체적으로 좀 도움을 받을 수 있는 좀 구체적이고 확실한 직접적인 조언을 좀 부탁드리겠습니다. 템페스트 박사님.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think above everything else, as with any other country, you need to work through your ministries of trade and foreign affairs. This is extremely important to work through the embassies. Africa, as I mentioned, it's got a lot of red tape. There are unclarities in the way in which the laws are written, etc., etc., etc. And it can only really be solved country by country and also looked at by the different people, specialists in trade in your embassies in those countries. So that is my best solution for you. I would never want to hide that it's not an easy continent to do business in. I showed you the World Bank chart, or at least the top 5 countries in Africa in terms of ease of business, and you could see that not many countries come below 100. It is a difficult continent. So, using the trade ministry in South Korea and using the embassies in the different countries is by far the best way of doing it. Having said that, I heard that you were involved in agriculture. This is something which is extremely important for Africa to develop better agriculture. And so therefore there is a lot going on in that regard, particularly led by good technology. So it's something that a lot of countries, like for example Kenya, Rwanda, South Africa definitely, Botswana, are very interested in developing.
네, 답변 감사합니다. 지금 이제 그 템페스트 박사님께서 말씀해 주신 것을 제가 다시 한번 요약 정리하자면 아프리카 대륙을 하나의 시장으로 보고 접근하지 말고 그 기업의 진출 목적에 맞게 조금 더 구체화해서 거기에 맞는 거점 국가를 찾아서 진출하는 것이 타당하다는 말씀을 해주신 것 같습니다. 그리고 특히 농업 분야에 관련해서는 아프리카가 실제적으로 어떤 한 특정 작물이 과잉 생산되고 있음에도 불구하고 그 작물의 품종이라든가 혹은 도정 혹은 저장 유통 단계에서의 문제점 때문에 그것이 실제로 시장에 제대로 연결되지 못하는 문제점들이 있습니다. 그래서 만약 농업 분야에 진출하고자 한다면 그 하나의 과정, 생산부터 유통의 끝까지를 전체 프로세스를 모두 효과적으로 진행시킬 수 있는 어떤 토탈 솔루션적인 접근이 조금 더 적절하지 않나 싶습니다. 자, 그렇다면 또 다음 질문을 한번 또 받아보겠습니다. 이 질문은 앞서 했던 질문하고 비슷해서 일단 넘어가고요. 지금 자, 이거는 전 박사님께 드리면 좋을 질문인 것 같습니다. 자, 포스트 코로나 시대의 언택트 혹은 온택트 산업 분야에서 한 아프리카가 파트너십 육성을 위한 어떤 예나 혹은 이러한 아이디어를 조금 말씀해 주실 게 있으실까요? 전승아 박사님.
Korea-Africa partnership. Well, that's a pretty broad question because we just discussed that Africa is not just one country, it's a one continent, but there are so many different countries that have different characteristics and different development status and different regulations. So it's kind of hard to say what type of a partnership might be preferable, but one example I can tell you is, I worked in KT for the past 15 years, and ICT is, it's eminent thing that we can have a partnership. We do have a technology, so we can help to build, African countries to build up infrastructure, fast as possible and customized in that country, and also based on that infrastructure, KT telecommunications companies or other digital technology companies can provide solutions that you can provide services based on that solution. So that could be I think, because the question is broad, I should have tell you the answer broad. In my thinking, ICT technology and digital solutions based on that technology, because digital solution is very sensitive to technology, technological condition. So combined together, then might be the customizable partnership to each country.
네, 답변 감사합니다. 아마 지금 전승아 박사님께서 조금 구체적인 이제 설명을 하시기에 조금 난감하셨던 부분은 아직 한국의 아프리카 진출이 그렇게 활성화되지 않았던 데도 요인이 있는 것 같습니다. 제가 알고 있는 한 가지 예를 말씀드리자면 한국의 상업 디지털 시티나 대덕의 어떤 기술 연구 특구 등을 이렇게 벤치마킹해서 케냐에서 콘잡 테크노폴리스라는 것을 지금 개발 중인 것으로 알고 있습니다. 케냐는 특히 연간 11%씩 이 디지털 미디어 쪽에 굉장히 빠른 성장세를 보이고 있기 때문에 OTT 서비스의 급성장 혹은 이런 여러 가지 디지털 미디어에 대한 인력의 어떤 확충 이런 것들과 미루어 볼 때 이런 디지털 미디어 쪽에 아무래도 많은 발전 가능성이 있지 않나 이렇게 생각합니다. 자, 시간 관계상 일단 질의응답은 여기서 이제 마치고 지금까지 수고해 주신 템페스트 박사님 그리고 전승아 박사님 감사합니다. 잠시 쉬셨다가 전체 토론 때 다시 뵙겠습니다. 그리고 화면과 마이크를 끄지 마시고 잠시만 기다려 주십시오. 자, 지금부터는 세 분의 패널들을 더 추가로 모시고 언택트 및 온택트 산업 분야에서의 한-아프리카 간 협력 활성화 방안에 대해서 토론하겠습니다. 긴 시간 기다려주신 패널 여러분 진심으로 감사드립니다. 먼저 패널들께 간단히 자기소개와 주제에 대한 의견을 말씀할 수 있는 시간을 각자 10분씩 드리겠습니다. 그리고 이후에 발표자들과 함께 자유토론으로 넘어가겠습니다. 자, 그렇다면 먼저 조석기 호정솔루션 부사장님부터 말씀을 좀 부탁드리고 싶은데, 조 부사장님 혹시 지금 연결되어 있으신가요?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you for the very insightful presentations. It was very impressive and it has given me a lot to think about. My company, first of all, I wanted to just comment on what we do. We are a drone company. We do drone distribution, drone training, and solution services. And we have been quite active in Africa, in Ethiopia, Tanzania, and as well as Tunisia. And we have built a good relationship with many companies in West Africa as well. First of all, I think this topic very much is compatible to the ONTACT, as Dr. Chun have mentioned about drones in Korea. Drone by nature is a tool, a remote tool that by nature is untact, I'm sorry, that it does do things remotely. So we fly up in the air and it collects mass data acquisition, and it minimizes a lot of the physical contact that otherwise you would have if it's a traditional method of collecting data. So we are a company that has been very much promoting and the usage and training and distribution of UAV. And I have to mention that the drone industry in Africa is quite established already. And the Dr. Tempest mentioned that there are some African companies that are considering drone delivery, and it's also involved in many other aspects. But what we really try to emphasize in Africa is that we want to have a drone usage that is very much involved from the grassroots. Dr. Tempest mentioned that you don't have to be a huge company, that you don't have to be the Amazon. We want to believe in that. We want to be involved with small companies, and that's where a lot of the disruptive innovation happens. We want to, for example, decentralize a lot of the usage of drones. A lot of the projects, the ODA projects that have spent trillions of dollars since in the last 50 years have really gone from top up. And our business approach, we would like to take it where we want to be engaging smaller companies in smaller projects and really train and create the demand from grassroots. And I think we have done so. I think from our perspective, we do a lot of land mapping with drones. We do a lot of cadastral and topographic mapping, GIS services. And there's quite a bit of GIS and land surveying is a technology that has been around for decades in Africa. So they have been able to absorb a lot of the drone, the GIS concepts, and adapt the usage of drone as a technology. For example, in Ethiopia, some of our projects that we did, it was with the local government, and I know it's very early still, but the surveyors were able to adapt the technology, and also, which means that this provides an upgrade. We are looking at a very traditional, very labor-intensive type of industry, the survey industry, but now you're replacing with a modern way of using the drone and processing the mass acquisition of data from the office, rather than actually taking data, which is a lot more efficient, not only very efficient, but also you're changing the nature, upgrading the type of labor that you do from a physical labor type to more of a software processing type of work. And because of the efficiency, and a lot of Africa is still unmapped, it does provide the mass amount of resources that you could deploy with the drone, and replaces that with a drone. So we are very happy to really eager to create that market from the bottoms up. And I know from what the commissioner mentioned, the growth of the population and the age, the demographic age of the population, and it has been demonstrated as we travel to Africa that they are very tech savvy, and that they adapt very quickly to a lot of the concepts. So we have partners that are very advanced surveyors and drone operators already on the ground, and our objective is to partner with them. And it just fits this whole theme of contact, because eventually you're minimizing a lot of the activities that you otherwise do physically. I just wanted to really comment on Dr. Tempests, because it really resonates. The address, addressing the unaddressed is a very good topic for us to really cover, because we have done, in Korea, we have done a lot of projects where we have digitized and the address change to numerical address. That has been something that has been done in Korea already. And the drone, what we focus with the drone is precision cadastral survey. And I think we can do that in Africa already. I think we have people who operate drones and who know how to post-process the data, where you can create the parcels and the cadastral and digitize, which would really be a synergy for the e-commerce industry, where already the logistics side is very broken. You can really consolidate that and digitize that by bringing digitized mass data acquisition with the drone. So that is something that really stuck out from the presentation, and also the micro companies, and obviously the agriculture drone has been used, as Dr. Tempest mentioned, in the agriculture side, in the analysis. We have done, our project has been in Tunisia, where we have done some of the NDVI analysis on the cultivation of the crop of olive crop, which is a cash crop, where you can prevent not only disease, you can do topographic mapping, where you can plan and the irrigation system and the water flow and the waterway. So there's so much solution that can be adapted in a very massive and vibrant economy, where it's been growing very fast. So those are some of the comments I wanted to make. And it's been a very insightful information, and I would continue to be very motivated to really engage some of the issues and topics and solutions. Drone is not really, it's just a drone, but the solution aspect is what makes it very adaptable to Africa. So African problem with African solution is something that is, you're right, the drone is just a tool, but the solutions that can be provided with the drone, you have to be on the ground with the boots on the ground to be able to really capture that and be partnering with companies there to know where the solution, where the problem lies, so that the drone can provide and be used as a solution tool. So that's my comment and a brief introduction of our company, Ho정sollution. And with that, I'll turn it over to our host.
네, 감사합니다. 지금 이제 조석희 호정솔루션 부사장님께서 말씀해 주신 드론을 이용한 GIS 서비스는 크게 세 가지의 장점이 있을 것 같습니다. 첫 번째는 중육로 시스템을 보완하는 데 큰 도움이 될 수 있을 것 같고, 두 번째는 80% 정도가 잘못 기록된 불충분하게 정리되어 있는 토지 제장 시스템을 정비하는 데도 큰 도움이 될 것 같습니다. 그리고 마지막 세 번째로는 그 전자상거래, 특히 물류유통 시스템을 확장시키고 성장시키는데 상당히 도움이 될 것이라고 보여집니다. 또한 관련되어 있는 전문 인력과 또 현지 인력들을 고용함으로써 새로운 고용시장 창출에도 적지 않은 도움이 될 것 같습니다. 큰 기대가 됩니다. 그리고 조석희 호정솔루션 부사장님을 간략히 소개해드리면 세계은행, 아프리카개발은행, 그리고 한국외환은행 등에서 개발자금기구에서 경제개발 프로젝트를 다각도로 많이 추진해 보신 경험이 있으시고, 또 개발도상국의 개발 프로젝트 자문에 굉장히 뛰어난 재능을 가지고 계십니다. 자, 여기까지 이제 조석희 부사장님의 말씀을 정리하고, 그 다음으로 자, 아까 우리 외교부의 이태호 차관님께서도 잠깐 소개를 해주셨던 텔라의 진유아 대표님을 소개해드리겠습니다. 자, 진 대표님 간략한 자기소개와 의견을 좀 말씀해 주시겠습니까?
Hello, is everybody able to hear me?
네.
It's okay. All right. Well, thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conference. To introduce myself and what I'm doing, my name is Yuha Jin, Jin being my family name, and I'm Korean. I'm doing business both in Korea and Uganda. So I hire tutors or English tutors in Uganda to teach Korean English learners in Korea. So our tutors are in Uganda and our customers are in Korea. And actually we have customers, Korean customers all over the world in 61 countries. So we're serving basically the whole world. And our tutors, I created this business in 2014 with the purpose to create jobs for university graduates for East African countries. As many of you may know, their unemployment for youth is high in the overall the African continent, but in East Africa, the unemployment goes up to more than 80% at times for university graduates. And although there are a lot of other maybe demographics that need jobs, I thought that targeting or hiring university graduates was very important for the economic or societal development of each country, because the country or society has invested a lot into these people that went to university, where they should now be actually producing more in the society, and they have the potential to become leaders or businessmen or people that create greater value for the whole society. Yet a lot of them were actually unemployed or underemployed. So that's how I founded the company. So far, how we were doing this is we actually created a service, English lessons through chat. So our tutors would be at their homes with their laptops doing lessons through chat. So far we've been able to create more than 100 jobs. We even had Miss Uganda work for us at some point. So, we have more than 80,000 users so far. So we're growing now at a faster rate. That's my introduction. Now, I think it'll be better to talk about greater subjects than just our business, but my comments based on, I don't have much knowledge about various industries, but I can speak based on my experience and my thoughts. So I think, so we're basically like an on-tact company, I should say. So everybody can work anywhere basically and receive the service anywhere if you just have internet connection. And I think many Korean entrepreneurs or investors can invest in this area of on-tact, especially in the areas of, I think, education. Koreans have we have the strength in education, also in content. I think we have the strength in those areas, and also I think there's room for investment or businesses in SaaS or software as a service for businesses. And also because Korea, I think that Korea has the highest standard for providing the best user experience or customer experience. Everything has to be very quick, everything has to be very meticulous, very perfect. So because we have that expertise, we can also transfer that into on-tech services such as online platforms or basically any industry that really needs that perfect customer or user experience. Retail, online retail can be that part, anything that requires that. So even for our business, when we talk about, okay, let's say our business really grows, what do we want to do for the next thing? Then we're talking about education or content and also these areas. So I think because we're Korean, we have that strength and we can have a competitive advantage in those industries. I heard a lot about doing business with Uganda or Africa. I did go through maybe the frustrations of such as infrastructure or some inefficiencies in, let's say, administration, etc. But I think because on-tech actually can overcome all of those barriers, because first of all, if you do business online, we can overcome all the inefficiencies because we can connect customers and service providers or sellers. It's basically people that provide the service and purchasing the service, they don't have to go through rigorous permits or registrations or all these paperwork. Actually, it's very limited. Of course, we have to do it within the legal boundaries, but compared to businesses that we do offline, it's much more easier to create a business. We don't have to go through all those basically burdensome paperwork or permits or stuff like that. And also, we don't have to rely on the infrastructure problems that we might have, such as traffic, etc. So even for us, we actually had our tutors commute to the city to work up to last year, but actually we transitioned into working full-time at home. Now our tutors don't have to go through all the traffic, don't have to waste all that money and time. Some of our tutors even spend 4 hours on the road, 5 hours on the road daily just to go back and forth. And transportation would cost up to 20% of their monthly salary. So if we utilize online cleverly, the cost of data is actually much cheaper than going through all this inefficient infrastructure that will cost a lot for everybody. So we can think of this as a positive. And I think also because of the pandemic, so many Africans all over the continent now are more tech savvy. So maybe there were limited people that were tech savvy enough to try and use online services or use online retail or maybe banking, etc. But now, because people didn't really have a choice, they actually kind of were forced to become more tech savvy as much as they can, whether it's for finance, education, whatever it is. So that means that as entrepreneurs, we can actually reach potential customers more easy. It's easier to reach more potential customers. We can talk to them more easily online. And actually, before this, we didn't really have a lot of data about the market in general online. So we had to do all the footwork. Whereas now, because people are using more data, we actually can gather more data about each market. And so I think this is we can look at the downsides, and there still are a lot of problems to fix, but doing business for the past few years, I kind of learned that, okay, it's just better not to really deal with the inefficient infrastructure that I can't really do anything about, but I'll work with what I can. And now I think it's kind of more easier to think about new business ideas because of all of this change. So, and lastly, I would like to say, even in our business, so for example, for Uganda, Ugandan government was trying to implement a BPO industry policies, so business process outsourcing. So we can think of like the Indian call centers or Philippine call centers or coders, etc. So we outsource work from more developed countries to Uganda, and that was what the government was trying to do, and they actually invested in a lot of the infrastructure. So they set up a big call center with computers, with high-tech equipment that seats more than 300 people. This was already in 2014-15. Now, that being said, when I visited that place, those seats weren't filled, meaning even though there's an infrastructure, there weren't being jobs created. And I think that a lot of African countries have actually invested a lot in infrastructure, more than we think, but it really all comes to the talent that actually provide services or create products or value. So as a Korean, I think we have a history of just coming from nothing to really, we didn't really have any natural resources. We just built people, whether it's out of starvation, whether it's out of pressure from our family, whatever it is, we actually pushed ourselves and pushed each other to become great talent. So we really need great talent to ultimately build great businesses and industries in African countries as well. So that's what I'm trying to do with our tutors, and I am confident that our tutors are actually most tech savvy, best workers, like 1%, top 1% best workers in the whole continent. So through businesses, we can actually build great talent and reinvest this into building even greater talent. So I think talent is key. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
네, 감사합니다. 진유아 텔라 대표님이셨습니다. 지금 진 대표님의 말씀을 들으니까 텔라 서비스에 제가 먼저 가입을 좀 해야 될 것 같습니다. 그리고 말씀하신 것처럼 80%에 육박하는 동아프리카 대졸자의 어떤 고용 불안 내지는 이제 미취업 상태를 해결하는데 상당히 많은 기여를 하고 계신데, 또 한편으로 생각되는 것이 지금 쌓아놓은 어떤 여러 가지 시스템들을 이용해서 한국의 발전된 ICT 기술들을 그 아프리카 지역의 젊은 인재들에게 교육시키는 하나의 비대면 원격 교육 시스템을 한번 같이 하시면 어떨까 싶은 생각도 좀 듭니다. 코이카에서 루안다 지역에 ICT 이노베이션 센터라는 것을 건립해서 거기서 아프리카 대륙을 위한 ICT 전문 인력들을 양성한다고 하는데, 이런 네트워크들을 좀 같이 활용해서 지금의 원격 영어 교육 이상으로 조금 더 확장된 텔라의 모습을 기대해 보겠습니다. 진유아 대표님께서는 한국에서 사회적 기업에서 교육개발 책임자로 일하셨기 때문에 여기에 대한 굉장히 멘션이 투철하신 것 같습니다. 자, 그렇다면 마지막으로 지금 굉장히 많이 기다려 주셨을 텐데 사다무두 카바 모알리 대표님 부탁드리겠습니다.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Really thank you for having me here. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. I am Sadamudu Kaba from Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, which is West Africa. It's a French-speaking country. I'm an expert in digital transformation, IT and telecom industries. Currently, I support companies in the strategic deployment, including those coming from outside either Côte d'Ivoire or the continent. Also, my firm specializes in project management and investment and financial structuring. I'm the former CEO of Moali, which is a joint venture between MTN and Orange. Actually, it's a fintech to work on the interoperability of mobile money in Africa. I was also previously running the accelerator of Orange in Côte d'Ivoire to help develop startups. So in the course of that, I supported more than 20 startups with a very low rate of debt toll on those startups. So we can go into details in that later on. So this morning, the subject we're having is part of what I'm used to doing. And thank you very much and congratulations to those who spoke before me. Dr. Tempests, you'll excuse some of my data here in going through what I'm going to say. They're really based on you said there's a lack of data, but also they're based on my own experience. We span over 25 years in these industries. So what I would like to talk to you about this morning is, I mean, we've said, I think even the representative of the African Union said we have a big market in Africa, 1.2 billion people, mostly young, so energetic, with vision, with ambition, and that's important to drive business. We also have a COVID impact, definitely, I think you all mentioned it, leading us to one of our first recession for the past 25 years. This is very important. So taking back more than 40 million people into extreme poverty. So it means it's it's more than 5 years of effort of many countries in Africa trying to develop that has been kind of scattered over from March to now. This is a big, big, big impact, but we can keep the hope because when I look at Côte d'Ivoire, for instance, and I look at the splits between agriculture, services, and industry, I can see that the services account for 50%. And if we consider that much of the untapped industries will develop on the service side, I think this provides a good prospect for future development. We are, in the context, we are the youngest population on Earth. So in 2100, so in a century, the African youth will represent nearly half of the world youth. That's very important. So we need to work hard on this population to make sure that we don't create more trouble, more difficulties in terms of development. Unfortunately, when we think about the continent, it's a continent plagued with various unrest, social, political, that someone mentioned earlier. Actually, this morning I just Googled African news and I could see massive pictures mentioning that. So at best, when we have good news, it's on our artists, musicians, or our football players. I think it's good, but it's not enough. I think we can go beyond that. And going beyond that, if we look at, I took the example of one big success, which is mobile money on the continent. It's very huge. Overall, in the world, we have 290 services available, which are running, out of which 144 are from Africa. So this is 50% of the operations running in Africa, in a country where we have a very strong informal sector, paper economy, hard to get cash, etc. I think that's very important. When we look at the number of transactions, the volume of the transaction also, we above 64% of the volume of transaction, 66% of the values of those transactions. Half of those transactions are taking place in East Africa with Kenya. We have M-Pesa, which is a very good, a big success. And then coming back to West Africa, where I live, we have 1/3 of that volume. Looking at the challenges, you may look like a repetition, but I think it's important to go through it again. We have some challenges brought by COVID and actually enforced by COVID, our infrastructure. The previous speaker was talking about access to power, which are problematic. We have a volatile financial sector, also difficult because with COVID, getting guarantees, etc., are becoming harder. So for financial institutions, it's very difficult to follow businesses. In agriculture or industry, the production chain stopped during the lockdown, which was very painful. So it means significant reduction on the work time during COVID. So on the demand side also, you see the food industry, restaurants were empty, hotels, no tourism, the leisure, etc. Everything was stopped. And then we had very strong pressure on the health and education system. Some part were able, particularly on the education system, to do distance learning, but in areas where infrastructure is an issue, it wasn't possible for the young people to continue their courses. And looking at that, I was interested by a graph from, I don't know if you can see my slides. Can you see? Yeah, okay, great. Some figures from the World Bank. On one side, you have the digital infrastructure that I was mentioning earlier. So the policies to be put in place, the support from the ISPs, the service providers, all the actions that were taken by the states to relieve companies on the tax area, and then the affordability of the system, so for the population to get online, to continue the business also, there was a huge pressure on that. And when we look at the people side, so the service provision itself, I think we have part of what we've discussed since this morning that you mentioned, definitely not at a high level like what is happening in Korea, but we can see that business continuity was an issue, there were efforts in that. The public health information also accounted for 18%. We had a bit of telemedicine. We started, so now people can call the doctors to get advice, references, and prescriptions. We have e-learning, which accounts for 26% of that, and obviously the digital payment, which is huge, 33%. So 1/3 of all the digital value proposition came from that. And that's quite interesting and important, and it is based on the success we had with mobile money. Going forward, I think we have what I call structural challenges. My peers mentioned those. On the top, obviously, we have education. It's really a challenge, you know. I think if more people are educated, well, we'll have a better development. You mentioned earlier that Korea had no natural resources, but were able to build people. I really like this expression because I think it's the cornerstone of whatever we would like to do in Africa to take things forward. Infrastructure is an issue. Access to cash is big also, because businesses here find it difficult to get the cash, and if you don't have the cash, even if you have genius ideas, etc., it may be difficult to implement your vision. Also, there's something that we don't mention enough, but that I've noticed as part of my experience is the fact that people don't work together very much. You know, so you don't have this kind of intelligent knowledge sharing that is spreading across. So that's the sport guys that you see in water working together to move forward. And I think that's something we need to strengthen, we need to work hard on. Obviously, we have the frameworks. So someone mentioned the policies, etc., the decision, we have the regulation, sometimes stopping us from doing whatever we want to do. And so this has to be developed, to work more on. We also have the health system, I think, is a challenge, because if people are not healthy, they cannot be educated properly, and then they won't be able to work correctly and produce value. Obviously, along all those challenges, we have the informal sector, which is very important on our market. It accounts for about 60–70% of people in the informal sector. So that's in relation to COVID. You see how impactful for instance, the lockdown, the fact that we had social distancing, etc., where you have communities living in very tight conditions and difficult conditions. I have a list here of points that I think that there are grounds for opportunities. I highlighted 3 of them. I will not go into details in it, but definitely the phone penetration in most countries, we nearing 100% or more than that. So that's really helping a lot in the financial inclusion and use of phone-based applications. But the 3 points are 70% of our population has less than 30 years old. So that's quite important. As I say, it's dynamism, it's energy to work. Now, how do we channel all these to make sure that they have the right skills to do what they want to do or what they're supposed to do? It's important. The leapfrog through digital to scale rapidly. I believe in that, you know, strongly. We had that 5 years against 2 months in Korea that we get in South Africa, Kenya, everywhere we see it, and so that's important. And then the third point I would like to emphasize on is the globalization and technological development. The African youth is very technology savvy, very interested. So they're working actually with all the development, the social network, the media strength on the internet. People are almost living like in the States, in Europe, in Asia, etc. So it comes with some challenges, some pluses, but then some minuses. So we need to look at that to see how we make things happen in Africa in a win-win situation. Okay. To provide more ground for discussion to all of us, I've prepared a kind of matrix. It's definitely not exhaustive, but I think that there are 5 areas that we need to look for, or at least look into deeply, particularly the Korean companies, if you want to come here, because of the number of people engaged there, because of the potential to develop. These are agriculture, education, health, finance, and administration. And against that, I've identified some activities, I think, actions that must be taken. So one, it's a piece of advice. Let's limit the copy and paste attitude. Say, okay, it worked in Korea or elsewhere, we come in Africa, we do exactly the same. It will not work from my experience. Direct partnership, so work together with the companies on the ground, make sure that there's knowledge sharing, so that each party gets the most out of the other. I think that's important. There is something I think we need to emphasize on, it's software development and robotics. For instance, we talk about agriculture. It has to be automated, this activity, to increase the level of production and to have a better ratio on our lands. Because today, if you take any of our crops, you will notice that the production rate is very low for the number of people that are engaged in this. And whereas you see that educated people, intellectuals, many of them come from farming families. So I think getting back to those technologies to improve agriculture will help us a lot. And finally, I think we need to engineer and manage data in a very safe way. I didn't want to mention cybersecurity or specifically, but it's part of that, and it is important that the data is managed properly. Because also you mentioned earlier the fact that it is possible to improve our election system, identification system. For me, all this is part of the data that will be used, that will engineer, but it means that we need to provide a level of trust, a level of confidence to all the stakeholders for this to work properly. And as a conclusion, I like to say that the iPhone is probably the most sophisticated mobile phone, yet it's very simple to use. Very simple, no user manual. You just take it, you use, and you communicate. So my strong belief is that our needs, usages in Africa should be regarded as such. So not just say, okay, because it's Africa, because there's a lack of infrastructure, because people are not well educated, we will come and bring a very first level solution and fix their problems. It will not work. I think we need to work hard to find very strong solutions to make it easy for the population to use those solutions. One example, why is prepared communication working very well in Africa? People are recharging their phone. They have not made any, they have not spent a day at school, but still they can use the USSD codes to recharge, to pay for airtime, to use the telephone. So we need to have this technology at the highest quality for people to use it seamlessly. Thank you very much. I remain available for any question to go deep into what I've just said.
네, 카바 대표님 감사합니다. 카바 대표님께서 하신 말씀 중에서 제가 이제 가장 관심이 갔었던 부분이 바로 모바일 기반의 디지털 금융입니다. 보통 이제 아프리카에서는 금융기관의 굉장히 접근성이 어렵고 또 금융기관을 이용할 때 앞서 템페스트 박사님께서 말씀하신 것처럼 시간과 비용이 굉장히 많이 소요됩니다. 그렇지만 모바일 기반의 디지털 금융을 통해서 굉장히 쉽고 간편하고 안전하게 이렇게 결제 금융 서비스를 이용할 수 있다는 것 자체가 금융 민주주의를 이루고 있는 것이 아닌가라는 생각이 듭니다. 그렇다면 한 가지 제안을 드릴 점은 아프리카에서 해외로 진출한 아프리카 출신 이제 노동자분들의 송금 서비스에도 이것이 활용될 수 있고 또한 아프리카로 진출하는 외국 기업들도 이러한 기존의 모바일 머니, 모바일 페이먼트 서비스를 좀 활용할 수 있게 조금 더 확장되고 안정된 시스템으로 이것이 좀 적용이 된다면 보다 급진적인 디지털 금융혁명을 이룰지 않을까 이렇게 생각이 듭니다. 자, 지금 세 분의 패널들께서 말씀하시는 중에 포스트 코로나 이후에 한 아프리카 간의 파트너십을 조금 더 발전시킬 수 있는 아이디어를 부분적으로 말씀해 주셨는데 간략하게 패널분들께서 한 가지 아이디어씩을 조금 더 말씀해 주셨으면 좋겠다는 그 요청이 플로어에서 왔습니다. 그래서 지금 발표해 주신 세 분 패널들께서 조석기 부사장님, 진유아 텔라 대표님 그리고 사다무두 카바 모알리 대표님 이렇게 돌아가면서 한번 간략하게 아이디어를 좀 말씀해 주실 수 있을까요? 조 부사장님.
So I think we have to, this theme has been brought many times by several of the presenters. It is important for us to understand what the need is. As Mr. Kaba mentioned, that we're not trying to push a technology that they don't need or trying to create a partnership based on something that is a model that works in Korea. So it is important to build a partnership based on listening to our partners and what the needs are. And it does require being in contact with the customers and partnership. We value the partnership that we have because we cannot create those very quickly and right away. So we've been in Tanzania several years, more than 5-6 years, and we have built these relationships. So I think it does take patience and time, but most of all to know what the solution that is needed requires, rather than trying to take a model that is Korean and try to apply it in assuming that that's going to work. So that is perhaps one lesson that I would like to share with you in trying to promote the partnership in Africa.
네, 감사합니다. 다음 진유아 텔라 대표님께서도 간략하게 한 말씀 해주시겠습니까?
Yeah, I was thinking while listening to all of our panelists and lecturers that business actually is a very good way to solve problems on each side. So I'm always stuck on the daily operation of our business. So just having this time to kind of look back on what kind of how our business model is actually impacting each society is actually not to brag, but it's actually, it's kind of amazing to think about, because I think business, business enables our Ugandan side and our Korean side to actually focus on not on what the company wants or the Korean company wants or Ugandan tutors want, but we focus on what the customers want or the customers need. So, and through that, we actually create more value rather than just distributing resources that we already have. So it's actually, business, because we're trying to survive as a business, we were able to overcome so many obstacles that we thought initially we might not be able to. Even for the infrastructure problem, we were thinking, okay, the internet is weak. What if this is going to affect us? So we thought about innovative ways to pass by that, which was we provide our service through chat. So chat data requires very small amount of data compared to video, like what we're doing now, Zoom or calling. And sometimes even if we don't have electricity, our tutors can do lessons through their phone that's charged or their laptop that's charged. So business helped us, it really pushed us to, because we wanted to serve our customers the best, because we had to survive, we were able to come up with so many innovative stuff. And it wasn't about the Korean way to do it or the Ugandan way to do it. It was about serving the customers. So I think business, it really kind of enables the stakeholders to kind of not really debate about the ideas, but actually what is come up with solutions that is going to work. And through doing that, we can actually create more value on each side. So I would love to, I'm kind of sad that this is online, but I would love to be in connection with more people that have entrepreneurial spirit and to, yeah, create more value through other business models as well. And I would like to also say through business, this is a byproduct of our business, where now that 80,000 people in Korea have had a lesson with a Ugandan tutor, there's more than almost 80,000 people that really didn't have any idea about Africa, or maybe just the wars or famine or whatever it is. But actually they they talked with an African person that's very highly educated, well-spoken, that's teaching them. On our Ugandan side, our tutors were, they think of Korea as like a very rich country, a very well-developed country, the country of Samsung, of LG, and but yet they're the teachers of our Korean customers. So actually that gave them a lot of pride, a lot of joy, and also the daily interaction they're having with Koreans give them also a broader perspective of the world. So I just want to say, like, through business, we actually have a lot of byproducts that we didn't even anticipate, and this actually helps other businesses see, oh, we can actually do business with Ugandans. We actually have competitors now hiring Africans, which they didn't before. So we're threatened a little bit, but we're seeing the results of our business and what a business can do. Although our business is not like a Google yet, but yeah, I think if there's more innovative businesses like this, especially on this on-tech area, there can be greater impact, and Korea and Africa can have a greater partnership.
네, 감사합니다. 자, 그리고 마지막으로 카바 대표님께서도 짧게 한 말씀 해주셨으면 좋겠는데, 카바 대표님께서는 2004년 오렌지 코트디부아르 부가가치 상품 서비스 담당 매니저로 입사하셔서 오렌지 코트디부아르의 혁신 리더십 구축에 굉장히 큰 기여를 하셨습니다. 현재는 이 경험을 바탕으로 아프리카 서부와 중부 아프리카에서 모바일 결제 환경 변화를 선도하고 계십니다. 자, 카바 대표님 짧게 한 말씀 부탁드리겠습니다.
Yeah, I think we've gone through it. It's trust, continued relationship. I think the business owners from Korea need to come on the ground to see the people, to understand how it works. Although, I mean, we are talking about untagged and untagged businesses, so we're supposed to use the virtual systems. But I think as we're talking about human, as we are going to provide services to the people, it is important to understand very well the need of the customers and go beyond. I think for what I would look at, I'll look at it as a value chain where, for instance, from Korea, you have a solution that can be adjusted, adapted to the market. On the other layer, you have a business partner locally who knows the needs, and together you'll come together to ask to dig properly those needs and find a solution that is truly adjusted to what they need. You know, I mentioned there are so many things to do in the field of blockchain. You mentioned earlier, but I think things related to data analysis, to data mining, data warehousing. I mean, all these things about data collection. Because what I've noticed is there are many developments taking place, but we have an issue about content. The content is there, but it's very difficult to go and get. But because the companies don't have access to cash to do the research and development, or to take the time to go and dig for those data, so they kind of bypass, they will go quickly for a solution to say, okay, if I can go to the customer with my application, I'll be able to how will I say it? To feed that application with the content I'll get. But it's difficult to work like this because you will have no experience back then. There's no testing, etc. So we are in a catch-22 situation. I mean, it's not that dark, the situation, because now people are developing more. We have firms financing financial institutions that take the risk with some companies, so that's good. We need to continue.
네, 감사합니다. 세 분 패널들의 말씀을 요약해보면 결국 아프리카 수요에 맞게 커스터마이즈된 기업 어떤 솔루션이 필요하지 않겠는가라는 말씀인 것 같습니다. 자, 긴 시간 동안 이 플로어를 지켜주신 많은 분들이 계신데 이제 지금 두 분 발표자와 세 분 패널들께 혹시 질문이 있으시면 여기서 지금 받겠습니다. 혹시 질문 있으실까요? 아, 네, 저기 선생님. 마이크 좀 부탁드리겠습니다.
예, 저는 원래 해외 건설 쪽에 근무를 해온 사람입니다. 주로 아프리카권에 제가 집중을 해가지고 동아프리카, 서아프리카하고 남아프리카 핵심 국가를 중심으로 해서 주로 해외 사업 개발에 관한 그런 컨설팅 및 서포팅을 하고 있습니다. 저는 현지에서 물론 프로젝트 매니지먼트 같은 것도 해왔지만은 많은 문제를 몸으로 겪으면서 그것이 우리가 일반적으로 이제 인프라스트럭처를 개발을 먼저 하게 되는데요. 어느 나라든지 간에. 그것이 주로 이제 제조업에 관한 것이고 2차 산업에 관한 것인데 지금 사회는 너무 급변해서 4차 산업혁명에 와 있습니다. 그래서 그것을 어떻게든지 간에 이런 2차 산업이 인프라를 사회의 기반을 갖춰줘야 4차 산업도 함께 발달을 시킬 수 있는 것이 돼 있는데 이것을 별개의 문제로 하게 되면은 그것이 마음대로 진행이 안 되는 것을 몸소 느꼈습니다. 그래서 우선 저희 분야에서 문제라고 할 수 있는 것이 아까 조금 전에 카바 우리 매니저님께서 말씀을 하신 게 조금 저는 와닿는데요. 우선 저희가 이제 국가와 또 국가와 기업, 그 다음에 기업과 또 하나의 개인 간의 관계, 또 국가와 개인 간의 관계, 이런 제가 하는 분야는 그런 식으로 좀 업무가 이루어지고 있습니다. 그 과정에서 가장 중요한 게 이제 아프리카권의 국가는 우선 자금이 좀 없는 나라가 대부분이고, 그렇지만은 상대적으로 자원이 많습니다. 그래서 우리 선진국이라든가 이제 좀 더 먼저 조금 더 개발이 된 나라, 예를 들면은 저희 나라 같이 IT가 강점이고 예전에부터 이미 있다 보니까 우리나라는 건설 기술이 어느 나라보다 좀 뛰어난 축에 있습니다. 그러다 보니까 아프리카에서는 그런 인프라를 개발하기 위해서 한국의 건설사를 상당히 환영하고 있고, 그런 차원에서 저희가 이제 그런 진출을 하게 되는데요. 지금 한국의 많은 기업은 아프리카의 어려움을 겪는 것이 바로 아까 우리 카바 매니저님께서 말씀하신 대로 우선 뱅킹 문제에서 문제를 많이 겪고 있습니다. 예를 들면은 프리컨스트럭션 부분에서는 우리가 이제 주로 이 컨트랙이라든가 어떠한 나라에서 어떤 프로젝트를 가지고 있어서 어떠한 컨트랙트를 찾는다, 이런 것이 기본으로 먼저 시작이 되고, 그리고 나서 계약을 하게 되고, 그리고 나서 이제 계약과 협상을 통해서 액팅 컨스트럭션으로 들어가게 될 텐데요. 그 과정에서 바로 이제 2차 산업 분야에서 실제로 몸과 몸으로 대면을 하고서 하게 되는 경우가 지금까지도 실정입니다. 그것이 과연 이제 앞으로 언택트 시대에 그것을 좀 해결해 줄 수 있는 것이 이제 블록체인 기술이 보안성이 뛰어나다는 것이 되어 있기 때문에 그런 많은 서류들이 움직이는, 그러니까 물건을 하나 단순히 무역 거래에서 단순하게 팔고 사는 게 아니라 하나의 다큐멘트가 많은 다큐멘트가
지금 죄송한데 시간이 얼마 남지 않아서
예.
혹시 질문보다는 지금 말씀하신 게 이제 실제로 아프리카 사업을 했었을 때 겪으신 이제 경험담에 대한 말씀이신가요?
저는 그래서 제가 여쭈고 싶은 것은 2차 산업의 이런 기술들이 지금 저희의 이런 개발에 관한 아프리카권에 진출할 때 그런 것이 어떻게 접목을 시킬 수가 있는가, 그런 보안성 문제라든가 이런 것들을, 그것이 이제 제가 좀 궁금한 내용입니다.
어느 분께 답변을 좀 청하시는지요?
우선 저는 이제 지금 사회자님께도 좀 궁금하고요.
네.
그 다음에 조금 전에 말씀하신 대로 우리 카와 매니저님과 그 다음에 전 제일 처음에 박사님
템페스트 박사님. 네.
그거 세 분께 한번 간단히 여쭙고 싶습니다.
일단 혹시 템페스트 박사님과 카바 대표님 간략하게 한 30초 정도로 답변 가능하실까요?
Okay, I've talked a lot. Maybe you can start with.
Mr. Kaba, you have an enormous experience as a consultant. Please, you should start. But I would just like to very quickly pick out a point that I think you made very clearly, and also Mr. Chow made, about relationships in Africa. And I think this continent lives on relationships. And we should, in the old days, you had to go and actually meet people and sit and have dinner with their families, etc., etc. That is now very difficult to do. But I would suggest that you use the Zoom and Teams and all the other systems to contact and be in contact with your business colleagues at all times. That would be my suggestion, but please, Mr. Kabe, your expertise.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tempe. What I would say, I mean, you can use these solutions here, but what is most important, you know, the problem of cash, I was saying, is important, but we are in a cash-22 situation, because previously some people who had access to cash never used it properly. For instance, in the construction sector, you would see many projects financed but not completed. So first, I would say that if you are interested to come here, my suggestion would be make sure that you have a one-stop shop solution, meaning you provide either for the cash or the guarantees that helps you get the cash to implement your project. You secure it, and then you enter in partnership with solid companies locally who can be recommended either by your embassy, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or the local ministries here. I mean, there are many ways to find the right people to do it, and then follow it through. Now, where the technologies will help, I think if you set up, for instance, your the ground where, the plot where the construction will take place, you can install all your cameras and you know, the solutions, and then make sure that the project is followed step by step to monitor really what is happening, how things are happening, etc. Obviously, if you want, what we need also in Africa is a knowledge sharing. So somehow, despite the COVID pandemic situation, we still will need some of your experts to be on the ground to work with the people here, even if it's on a short period, but at least to make sure that some of the knowledge or ideas are put forward, and then you follow it through from Seoul, wherever it could be, on Zoom or all the technological solution. But I think we need proof. We need proof. We need proof of your capabilities of doing things. So you can do a proof of concept, for instance, to start with, and then people see, and then one step after the other. That would be my recommendation.
네, 감사합니다. 지금 이제 그 대표님께서, 카바 대표님께서 발표해 주시는 중에 굉장히 반가운 소식이 하나 들어왔습니다. 그 탄자니아 지역에 투자를 원하시거나 혹시 기업이 진출하고 싶은 것을 희망하시는 분들은 주한 탄자니아 대사관에서 적극적으로 대응해 주시겠다고 지금 연락이 왔습니다. 그래서 이 이후에 이제 포럼이 끝난 이후에 탄자니아 쪽 혹은 투자라든가 아니면 기업 진출을 희망하시는 분들은 그 홈페이지로 들어가셔서 주한 탄자니아 대사관이라고 치시면 그 홈페이지에 연결이 됩니다. 들어가셔서 직접 연락을 한번 해보시기 바랍니다. 자, 긴 시간 동안 그 두 분의 발표자 전승아 박사님과 템페스트 박사님께서 긴 소개를 해주셨는데 마지막으로 두 발표자 분들께 간략하게 소감 한마디 여쭙고 정리하도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 이번에 전승아 박사님께서 말씀을 한번 해주실까요?
Well, I really got a lot of insights from people here, and thank you very much for having this wonderful chance. By the way, this comment might be just my wish while listening to your comments and presentations. I just thought of, I personally would really, I would love to travel Africa, many countries, not just one, many countries, but it needs a lot of time. Not just 1-2 days, at least a month, and a lot of money. It's too much money, to travel, and also safety, especially for women. So I think a lot of people in the world have that same desire, right? It's a lust, to travel around Africa for many countries for a month. So why don't you develop a virtual tour? And I think this might be one, great thing that Korea and Africa can cooperate together. Because as you know, Korea, we are really good at making content. It's a very attractive content. That's all about K-pop. That's all about webtoons, web drama. That's all the K-culture thing, like drama, movie. It's really we really have the sense of the cutting edge, attractiveness. So and in Africa, you do have the massive land, great nature, wildlife, and dancing and tribes and very unique cultures in every country. So combining those two might be the blockbuster, I think. And also one other point is, as you know well or not, the Korea's VR, virtual reality, or these days we just call it XR because it's AR, VR, MR, a lot of the virtual reality thing, artificial reality thing. We do have a lot of companies and actually very developed culture. But in Korea, to my sorry, those companies didn't really make a lot of hit because we're kind of small country and it's easy to meet each other, to feel the real thing. People prefer the real thing, if they can get it easily. But African culture, that kind of thing is not easy to get. So please refer to YouTube, not just the mega box, the culture content, very small things too. There is feasible that if you see the YouTube, there's a lot of mukbang. The mukbang is, a lot of Korean people just eating, because food is very unique Korean culture, right? So a lot of people just love to watch, Koreans eating Korean food. So I'm suggesting that the big thing, the big tour thing, and the small, very cultural small things like the food or the daily ritual or dancing, the house, or the kind of things, all could be content, And I think COVID-19 just gave us to have a chance to be a little more accessible to virtual tour, have more increased interest in virtual tour. So I think this is the chance for Africa, regardless of country. Yeah, that was my comment.
Okay, thank you.
네,
Actually, by the way,
감사합니다.
food also is something very important.
Right.
자, 템페스트 박사님도 마무리 인사 부탁드리겠습니다.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I just want to point out that there are virtual tourism programs from a number of countries. I don't know quite how many, but a number of African countries have done that. So you can go and virtually tour those countries. Dance, yes. I mean, our Jerusalem song may have reached Korea. It certainly reached Côte d'Ivoire. So we are also very much now starting music and animation as well, and we should we welcome the support and the expertise and the skills of Korea, not as a competitive issue, but as an issue to build this world which everyone will want to live in, and certainly which my children want to live in. So thank you very much indeed. It's been a great honor to be part of your meeting today. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 오늘 수고해 주신 발표자 패널분들께 다시 한번 진심으로 감사드립니다. 그리고 긴 시간 동안 온라인과 오프라인에서 경청해 주신 청중 여러분께도 다시 한번 감사드립니다. 자, 이상으로 2020 한-아프리카 비즈니스 포럼을 마치겠습니다. 지금까지 블록체인 에반젤리스트 최화인이었습니다. 감사합니다. Thank you.
So thank you very much. That was such an insightful discussion. So that was like a really interesting discussion, especially the virtual tour. That part was kind of like really struck me to chord. I believe that African market has a lot to offer, and the two will further have room for cooperation. That brings the end of the first session of the 2020 Korea-Africa Business Forum. Allow me to thank all distinguished participants for your presence and active engagement, as well as moderator, panelists, discussants. Thank you for your fruitful discussion. The next session will be held tomorrow on 20th November at 4 p.m. in Seoul, Korea time, and 10 a.m. in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia time. Like I mentioned before, it will be held both on and offline and live streamed via YouTube. This has been an interpreter, Gu Ji-seung. Thank you again and see you tomorrow. 설문지 작성 관련 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 현장 참가자분들께서는 작성 후에 등록 데스크로 제출해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그리고 온라인으로도 이 해당 링크가 줌과 유튜브에서 수시로 업로드될 예정이니까요. 꼭 참여해 주시면 정말 감사하겠습니다.